Welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Happy Thursday, everybody. Here at Irish Breakdown, you guys know what we like to do on Thursdays. It is keys to victory, game predictions, game records, and then we're going to tie a bow on everything and talk about some other games going on across the country in college football. But, Brian, Notre Dame takes on the Purdue Boilermakers this Saturday at 3:30 inside of Notre Dame Stadium. And this is plain and simple a get-right game. And they find themselves in a similar spot that they did last year, come off of a gut-wrenching loss at home. You go on and play the Purdue Boilermakers in an in-state rivalry game. So this is another big matchup for Notre Dame. A little bit different implications. We're going to dive into that, but you guys know how we get down here. Talking keys to victory on offense in part one. Then we're going to get into keys to victory on defense. And then the following part after that, we're going to be talking about our predictions. We are going to give how we think the game is going to play out, final score predictions. And we're also going to talk game records on offense and defense as well. Brian, I'm ready to dive into this, man. Like you and I were talking about before the show, I'm ready to watch one go through the hoop. Notre Dame's got to come away with a victory this weekend.
And that's the big thing. You know, Trev, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the keys to victory and our game predictions. And look, this is a week that's not about Purdue. Like, it's not about Purdue at all. And I mean no disrespect to Purdue, because I think what Barry Odom's done, even in a very short period of time, they look so much different than last year. So much different than last year. I mean, like what we saw last year is just this team looks nothing like it. Kind of like how Notre Dame looks nothing like the team they were last year, but for different reasons. This is in a positive way for them. But at the same time, Trev, it's still very much a situation where they're still not in the same league as Notre Dame. This game should not be close. If this game's close at the end of the day, this is going to be a long year, like a very long year. This is one of, still with everything going on, still one of the four bottom teams on your schedule. And if you can't win this one with some convincingness, and I don't care if they struggle for a half and then figure it out. I think back to the game after Georgia in 2017, where the team kind of came out. They were a little, like down about what happened. It took them about a half to kind of get their footing against Boston College. And then the second half, just steamrolled Boston College and then went on a nice roll for a couple months. Even if it's that, I'm good. Like we just have to see this team turn the corner. On offense, it's some tweaks and adjustments. On defense, it's a blood transfusion. I mean, it is a complete overhaul. It's. Have you ever seen a movie Face Off? Oh, it's a great movie with John Travolta and Nicolas Cage. You got to watch it. Awesome movie. Premise basically being, they take one guy's face off of him and put him onto the other guy. And so then there's something happens. They end up switching faces, but it's the other dudes, but they switch faces. It's like they took Notre Dame's, face of Notre Dame football and put it on some garbage defense from last year. And like they're shell of themselves. They got to look at the end of the movie. It goes back. So John Travolta's the good guy at the beginning, the bad guy in the middle, and then the good guy at the end. Because he's two different people. He's this, I think he's like a federal agent, police officer at the beginning and the end. Nicolas Cage's character is Castor Troy, who's a bad guy, but then they switch in the middle of the movie. And so then Nicolas Cage becomes Sean Archer, and then John Travolta becomes Castor Troy, but he's actually Sean Archer. You get what I'm saying? It's a great movie, man. But they got to get back. It's got to get back to looking like, okay, yep, it's they're back. Whatever happened, they're back to being Notre Dame. That's going to be the key. It's not about what the margin of victory is. I mean, there's a scenario where they could blow Purdue out, and you're like, dude, this is still a problem. Okay, it's a perfect example of the Syracuse game that you were talking about, 2016. That's a great example because they went out and beat Syracuse, scored a ton of points, and everything's right in the world. And that nothing changed. They just happened to be good that day. But the DNA of that team never changed. Oh, great upset over a 9-win Miami team in 2016. But then the next week, they're back to being that team. And because their DNA never changed. They got to make sure that doesn't happen with this team. And sometimes you can right the ship, sometimes you can't. And this is a huge game because this is the game that's going to tell us if they can right the ship, Trevor. And so a lot of my keys to victory, they'll be remotely kind of applicable to this particular game, but it's going to be more about, are you changing your DNA? Did you actually do something in practice this week to change who you are as far as like the identity you've established so far. I know it's not what they wanted to be. Like Marcus Freeman didn't go to the season, hey guys, I want us to not be physical. I want us to like really play with sloppy fundamentals and shoot ourselves in the foot 75 times a game. And man, it'd be awesome if for once we could finally like have a bad pass defense. Like I'm tired of this whole ranking in the top 5 in pass defense thing. Like I'd really like to just let a couple teams shred us. That's not what they wanted coming in the season. But whatever they did led to that. So now you got to see if you can course correct. And this weekend will be step 1. It's not going to be a complete 180 in one game, I don't think. But you need to see sort of just that, hey, let's go. We've turned the corner and it's going to be good.
Agreed. And the turnaround has to happen, and it has to start now. Like we talked about yesterday, Sean Davis and I broke down in the show, it's not about the margin of victory, it's how the victory looks. And not necessarily, sometimes it comes down to eye test. And that's what you and I are going to be paying attention a lot to because of the talent gap between Notre Dame and Purdue. They do have the capabilities of beating Purdue by double digits, but there's a lot of things that we got to see. Starting on offense, Brian, and when we start talking about this unit, they're one where, yes, some people are kind of hanging their hats on. They've played well enough to win the last 2 games. I get that. But there are still some things that they have to clean up. So when you look at this group, before we completely dive into keys to victory, how does the offense need to play in this one when you look at their performance ahead of them?
I want to see an offense that Trevin, and we don't have it as one of the keys because we wanted to kind of talk about it here. I want to see an offense that just plays with a little bit more physicality up front, a little bit more urgency. I want to see an offense that shows that they've just progressed. Like there's people pissed off about the offense. If the defense was, I'll say this, if the Notre Dame defense in 2025 was 90% of what the defense was in 23 and 24, especially 24. Like when the 23 defense was good, but like 23, 24, either one, we would be in love with what the offense is doing right now. Like the fan base wouldn't be bitching about Mike Denbrock. They wouldn't be complaining about that. We'd be a little concerned about the offensive line, but we'd say, look, they had a bad first game. They still scored more points than they did in the opener last year. CJ Carr is going to have a chance to be pretty good. And then you come out game 2, you're like, okay, they figured it out. They moved the ball all over Texas A&M. CJ had a big day. Yeah, Jeremiah Love struggled to run the ball, but man, what a great job by Mike Denbrock to find other ways to get him the ball. So, hey, Jeremiah Love, run game not really going. He has 90-some yards on 20-some carries. That's not a great day's of work, but man, he's got, 5 catches. What was it, like 5 catches for 60 yards? Like what a great job to find multiple ways to get him the ball. Yet over 200 yards between Jeremiah and JD. Malachi, yep, he's going to be all we thought he would be. Oh, another big game from Eli Raridan, man. Oh, and CJ was even better in game 2. Yeah, the offensive line played better. Still not where they need to be, and not anywhere close, but they bet. We'd be thrilled with how this team is if the defense was the same. Because I expected, we talked about it during fall camp, I expect there to be some growing pains from this offense, but they're going to have a defense to rely on. That doesn't mean I'm happy at all about the offensive line, but I think we'd all be like, hey, look, guys, they weren't very good on the offensive line early last year. They'll be fine. But because the team is 0-2, now everybody's just getting kind of banged on, That doesn't mean that the offense has been perfect either. There's definitely some things that got to change. But really the big thing for me is I want to come out of this game saying for the 3rd straight game or 2nd straight game, the offense has shown growth. That's what I want to see. I don't need perfection. I need progress. Because if you're making progress every week, then you're eventually going to get to the point where you hit your stride. That's what I want to see from the offense. And if I see that, and some of the keys to victory are going to tie into what progress looks like. But that's the big thing for me, Trev, is I want to see them play with a little bit more fire as a unit across the board. I thought the skill players played really hard on Saturday night against A&M. I think the offensive line did their job for the most part, but they weren't great by any stretch. They were kind of average. People want to give them more credit than I think they deserve because they weren't as bad as they were in the opener, but that's not the bar, So I just want to see progress. Because if I see progress, I'm like, look, they're getting better every week. Boy, wait till game 5, 6, 7. Boy, this team's going to be fun to watch on offense. So for the offense, it's just about continued progress in all phases.
Agreed. Continue to stack performances, be clean operationally. Those are a lot of the things that I want to see from this offense. Continue taking steps in the right direction. And that's what you can kind of ask out of this group against Purdue. I agree with you completely. Brian, let's dive into how they get there. And the first key to victory, of course, it's going to be start fast. And I know each week we talk about different implications, but this is something that you and I have really focused on this past week because it's something that they need to do moving forward.
And look, we'll get to the crowd at the end, but first and foremost, this offense needs confidence built, continued more confidence built. And I think a fast start, and when in this game, fast start for me is you're getting touchdowns early and often. I mean, you're putting points on the board quickly. And that's important because the offense needs to come out and develop some chemistry, some fire. We need to see the progress that we talked about. They need to let Purdue know right away that, hey, guys, this is going to be a long day for you. We may not get to 66, but we're going to do our best. Like, I just want to see them moving the ball and scoring the ball early. I think the second factor to a fast start for the offense is I do think it takes some of the pressure off of the defense, Trev. I think the defense won't have to feel like, oh, gosh, we got to hold them to 10 if the offense comes out and just putting it to them. I just think it's just kind of that thing where it's like, okay, guys, like the offense is cooking today. Let's just relax. Let's take a deep breath and let's go play football. Whereas if the offense is coming out, going 3 and out, struggling like they were against Miami, that's going to put a lot of pressure on the defense to say, hey, you guys better step up and keep this thing because now this game's about you. Football's a team game, and teamwork is not always just about the 11 on the field together. Sometimes we got to make sure we're looking out for that other unit. We got to help them out. Hey, they bailed us out last year when we were scoring 23 points in the openers, 14 in the second game, 28 ugly points in game 4. We needed 2 short fields to get to 31 in game 5. Like, they carried us when we were doing that. And then we figured it out, and that's when we became unbeatable for a long time. Now we got to pick up and carry them for a little bit while they figure some stuff out. It's up to us to carry them. And I think that takes some of the burden out on them. So confidence in yourselves, pressure off the defense. And honestly, Trev, the fans need it too. If you want an energetic crowd, if you want a fired up crowd, you better give them reason early and often to give them crowd. And I don't want to hear any cry. If they come out and lay an egg in the first half, I don't want to hear any crying after the game about, oh, fans booed us. And I don't want to hear it. Because, it's like a buddy of mine texted me and he was irate. He's like, I paid $750 for a ticket. I paid, however much money. It was like something like $350 for a flight, $500 for a hotel. And this is what you give me? Like, I mean, you guys got to understand where fans are coming from. It's not a freebie. They're not walking around downtown South Bend and they're like, hey, you want to go to the game today? Sure, here's some tickets. That's not how it's going. They're spending their hard-earned money to go to a game like this to support you, and then this is what you give them. And so that's why I think it's important for the offense to come out early and often and say, hey, we're going to go out there and we're going to play with some fire. We're going to play with some passion. We're going to play some intensity, and we're going to take the fight to this team. I think that's imperative for this football team, Trev. Imperative.
Agreed. Out of both halves. You and I were talking earlier this week. Notre Dame has had 4 opening possessions. They've played 4 halves of football. They put up 0 points on the board in each one of those halves in their first possession. Got to find a way to start fast. And you can't put your defense behind the 8 ball once again, coming out of either to start the game or to start the second half. I don't even think that they've reached 80 total yards of offense in those 4 opening possessions out of each half. Got to change. Has to change. And look, this goes back to what we talked about. When you're playing an opponent against Purdue, you might not necessarily have to do that to beat Purdue. And you can do what you've done before. And, you put together a little drive or go 3 and out on the first drive and then come out and get to field goal range the second drive. And then you'll stack 3 consecutive touchdown drives. But this game is about using this performance as a benchmark to propel yourself forward. Because whether we like it or not, they're on the road against Arkansas a week from Saturday. It's about stacking your performances. This group has to find a way to start faster to begin the game and coming out of the second half. That is absolutely going to be huge for this group, Brian, and something that I'm going to be very keen on.
Yep. Number 2, Trev, I want to see this team attack. Like, and this means this is one of those all-encompassing things. I want to see this team play with urgency from a game planning and play calling standpoint, number 1. I want to see them execute with urgency. I don't want to see a lot of standing around. I don't want to see 2 motions basically the whole game, meaning 2 types of motions. I want to see you show some creativity. I want to see you say, hey, we're going to game plan to get Purdue on their heels. Then I want to see players coming off the ball fast. I want to see them coming off the ball playing hard. I want to see them basically be aggressive, attack Purdue, attack them with your tempo. And again, I don't mean going fast and snapping the ball at 29 seconds. I mean, you're playing with some urgency. There's some pace to what's going on. And I don't care about getting into the right call all the time, where you got to clap, look over, get the call, let them make their adjustments, then clap three. I mean, I want to see this team play with some pace. Sometimes you got to do that. Sometimes you got to do a check with me, but sometimes you're just going. And I want to see that. I want to see that in this game. I want to see them play aggressively. I want to see them attack down the field again. I want to see them be more willing to attack with their run game, really go at Purdue with their run game. Those are all things that I want to see in this game, Trev. I want to see this Notre Dame football team come out offensively and take the fight to Purdue. That's going to be a big key to me. That's a mindset thing. And it's a mindset that's established with how you practice, how you game plan, and how you call a game. You can't expect players to play with urgency and play with fire when you're slowing everything down. And everything is slow and everything is methodical. You can't then ask them once the ball snapped, however, you got to go really fast and play with urgency. Like, no, it's not how it works. So I want to see this team just take the fight to Purdue right away, immediately.
Agreed. Play like you know that you're the best unit on the field. And it seems like in the first couple of games watching Notre Dame's offense, they played a little timid, and they needed a Malachi Fields back shoulder catch or a Jeremiah Love hurdle to say, oh, yeah, we can hang on the field with these guys. The offensive line, I want to see them fire out in the run game and keep CJ's jersey clean in the pass game. I agree with you. They need to come out and be aggressive. But to your point, it doesn't have to be 4 verts every play. It doesn't have to be, you're running your 2-minute offense every single possession.
Right.
I'm with you there. Absolutely with you there. And I think that leads into your third point, Brian, of being able to play together and play smart. That's going to be absolutely huge for this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, this is all encompassing. I didn't want to just have a don't turn it over thing. I mean, it all fits into here. Play together. What does play together mean? Number one, that means there's got to be a sense of unity. Hey, where's your pride, offensive line? To you got this quarterback back there that's dealing. You've got the best running back room in college football. Where's your pride to say, dude, we got to do our job so that they can do their job? Wide receivers, yeah, you had some great blocks, but then on a 3rd and 3, that's when you really got to lock in. I can't say, well, I'll justify you missing this block, Jordan Faison, because you had those 2 other great blocks, because I needed that one. It was 3rd and 3. We have a chance to pop one, and you got to do your job. But there's a sense of, why am I blocking this guy? Is it just because it's what I'm told to do? Or is it because I know that if I get a body in this guy, Jeremiah or Jadarian's got a chance to go to the house? Why am I running hard on this backside dig route where I'm the 4th option? Because I know, because the quarterback's already proven to me in practice and now in games, that if I keep working, he'll find me if he gets time. Where's your pride in that? Where's your pride as the quarterback to say, hey, look, I got to do my job because these guys are all doing their job. It's all circular, right? And everything in there's not saying that that's what they're doing or not doing. But you need to see that. What else is playing together means? It means you can't have 10 guys doing their job and one guy not doing their job. That costs them a play. I mean, how many times have you and I talked about a play in the first 2 games where, if this one guy would have done this, this is a big play. If that one guy would have done that, this is a big play. If this one guy would have done this, it's a big play. The positive is when you're 1 or 2 guys away, you're close. And that's what people say, well, this team's really close. No, this team's really close on offense. This team is a mile away on defense, because it's usually there's only 2 dudes doing what they're supposed to do. It's the complete opposite. While frustrating for the offense, it's also encouraging, because when you do start playing together, 11 on 11, everybody doing their job, and everybody doing their job with purpose, this thing's going to be fun to watch. I mean, Trevor, we're frustrated with the run game, but if you break it down, you're like, dude, they're 5 missed blocks away from having a 250-yard performance. They are. Now, you didn't know, but that's why this is an important key, and why it's not so much about Purdue as it's about you, because I would argue this Purdue run defense has improved. I know they gave up 170-something yards to USC. What was it, 178? Let me pull it up here real quick. Yeah, it was 178. But only 4.5 per carry. And USC had rushed for 233 and 309 yards in the first 2 games. This Purdue defense is also improved. USC only had 357 yards. USC only had 460 yards of offense. That's a decent amount of yards. They went 6.8 yards per play. That's a decent amount of yards per play. But the first two games they were 597 and 755, and they went 10.5 yards per play and then 12 yards per play. They scored 33 points. Well, actually, they technically only scored 26 points because the defense had a pick six. But they scored 73 and 59 their first two games. So this defense is way better than it was last year for Purdue. But it's still not a defense that should be able to slow this Notre Dame offense down if they're cooking. If everybody's playing together, if it's 11 on 11, 11 guys knowing their job, that's key. Coaches, they got to know their job. Guys that are prepared for different looks that Purdue's going to throw at them, that everybody's playing together, everybody knows what to do, and everybody does it with purpose. If this offense does this, it's good enough to just roll. If it does it you're never going to do that for every single play. But if they can up the times they do this and then do it in the moments that matter, that's gonna have a big say on this team coming out to make some plays. So they got to play together. They got to play smart. That also means not turning the ball over. Be smart with what you're doing. You can be aggressive without being reckless. We've talked about this a million times. So those are the things that I want to see from the Notre Dame offense, Trev. That's another thing is play together, 11 guys doing their job with purpose, playing for the man next to you. Because at the end of the day, yeah, I want to see them give the fans something to be excited about, but they shouldn't be playing for the fans. They shouldn't be playing for me. They shouldn't be playing so that, man, I'm going to play well so Driscoll doesn't get mad at me in the postgame show, or I'm doing this because I don't want Coach so-and-so to yell at me when I go to the sidelines. I don't want to get booed by the fans. I don't want to turn my dad. No, I'm doing this for the man next to me. I'm doing this for my teammates. I'm doing this because if I do my job, it gives my teammate a chance to do his job. And we got some of the best in the country. So if I do my job, beautiful things are going to happen. That's what playing together means. And everybody doing their job and knowing what to do and then doing it and doing it with urgency. I want to see that. It's a big thing for me this weekend from this offense. We saw more of it in game 2 than we did in game 1. I want to see even more of it now in game 3 than we saw in game 2.
I echo the same sentiment, and I'll add on to it a little bit because I don't want to regurgitate what you're talking about. I just want to see this offense play clean operationally. I want to see them get into a 2-minute drill to end the first half, and they have all 3 of their timeouts at their disposal. They didn't have to burn 1 or 2 of them.
Or here's the thought. Can we see a 2-minute drill where you don't get your quarterback killed? That'd be amazing.
That'd be ideal. Play for the guy next to you, to your point. But I want to see it clean operationally. Turnovers, yes. As impressive of performances as CJ has put together in the first 2 games, still some things to clean up. Purdue is an ideal opponent to get some of those things cleaned up against. I just want to see them play clean operational football, getting the calls in on time from the sideline, getting your checks in when you need to, utilizing motion the way that you need to. I just want to walk away from this game eye test and say, okay, they're starting to hum a little bit. And I'm not going to pay attention to the final score, necessarily even the box score, because that's one of those things where, again, against this type of opponent, you could just kind of see it happening. But I want to see it look clean. It's my biggest thing. But the final part for keys to victory, Brian, talking about an individual player here and somebody that the offense has to get going, has to be a heavy emphasis this week.
They got to get the ball to Jaden Greathouse. It's not that hard, fellas. Get the ball to Jaden Greathouse. He's a stud. He's an impact player. I'm more sympathetic to the early play calling than some others are, because it is hard in 2 games to say we're going to design plays for Jeremiah, we're going to design plays for Eli, we're going to design plays for Malachi, and we're going to design plays for Jaden Greathouse. I'm sympathetic to that. But it's very clear that they're designing plays for Jordan Faison. So, which is, again, also fine, because I want to see Jordan Faison get some of those behind the line of scrimmage plays like he did against Miami early. Because how many times do we see Jordan Faison in the first quarter against Miami catch a ball behind the line and then do something positive with it? And that's fine, but you've got to do more to get Jaden Greathouse going. You have to. And they've got to really rethink their receiver rotation to where Jordan dominates the X, and then it's just this rotation between Will Paulding and Jaden Greathouse in the slot. Don't want to see that. I don't care if you're going to put Will Paulding outside at times or Jaden Greathouse outside at times. I don't care. But I don't want to continue to see Jordan Faison dominate the reps the way that he has so far. Jaden Greathouse has to play more. He has to get the ball more. He's a special playmaker. We know it. When you do this, When you design plays for him and you throw him the ball, he's going to do something with it. But you've got to design plays for him, and you've got to make sure the quarterback understands, hey, man, you're doing good, but let's not forget about number one over here. There's a couple times I felt he forced the ball to Malachi, which I don't necessarily hate, but just part of the growing up process for CJ will be understanding when to look at him, when not to look at him. Make your pre-snap read, but then when they walked, perfect example. There was one play that was called for Jaden Greathouse that was an option for Jaden Greathouse on Saturday night against A&M. Notre Dame was in a 3-by-1 to the left and a solo to the right. It was at the 5-yard line, I think, 5 or 6 yard line. And they were in kind of a wide bunch. Jaden Greathouse was the number 2. And at the snap, they had Eli Raridan run vertical. And I can't remember what Jordan Faison did, but I think he ran like a fade, I think is what he ran. And then Greathouse worked out and then came underneath Eli Raridan, and he was wide open. And CJ went to the right to Malachi in a one-on-one. Now, you say, well, why did he do that? Well, pre-snap, they showed 4 over 3, meaning they had 4. So they had the 3 guys in coverage, and then they had a linebacker playing in sort of splitting the difference between the receivers and the line. Well, if I'm running a slant right into that guy, I don't have the numbers. I don't have the leverage. So he looks to Mount. I'm cool with that. But he's got to see at the snap of the ball that guy coming down and blitzing. And as soon as he sees that, he's got to have the experience to say, okay, I'm at the snap, I'm coming back here. I'm going to look to Malachi. If he doesn't win right now, I'm coming back and I'm finding Greathouse underneath. Or just go to the Greathouse. And so that's, again, thing that will – and this is where Jaden Greathouse has to be patient. You got a young quarterback that's kind of working into this. He's going to have his early security blankets. You're not one right now. You got to be patient. Just keep doing what you're doing. The ball will come to you. But then as an offensive coordinator, you also got to say, okay, we got to make sure we're doing more where Jaden Greathouse is one of the primary options. And with all due respect to Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse has also proven in his career that he's pretty darn good with the ball in his hands as well. So he's got to be a bigger part of it. Has to be. And the final piece is, look, part of it too is a lot of stuff that he does is over the middle. And right now your quarterback hasn't shown a high propensity to want to throw the ball over the middle, which is, you see that a lot from a lot of young quarterbacks. That'll come in time. But that means you've got to do more and more to make sure Jaden Greathouse is getting the ball. It's an absolute must. Absolute must.
It's really disappointing. Unfortunately, when you go and you look at some of these FanDuel props, you can't even bet on Jaden Greathouse receiving yards.
He's not even on the board this week?
Nope, not even on the board. You can bet on him to score an anytime touchdown, and those odds are at plus 240. That's it. He is not an option under player receiving yards to bet on. For Notre Dame, it's just Faison, Raridan, and Fields. Now,
was Malachi and Eli at this week? I'm very curious about that.
Malachi, they finally bumped it up to over 52.5. It's about time they got him out of that 40 range, but
I'd still take that.
One of the ones that I talked about last night in the spread option was Eli Raridan's over-under set at 44.5. He's had 97 and like 80 in 2 games. And
85.
And Purdue's
85.
defense just gave up over 60 receiving yards to Lake McCree, USC's tight end, on 3 catches. So that was one of the player props we talked about. But can't even bet on Jaden Greathouse for receiving yards because he's had 4 targets this season and 2 catches. Gotta ramp up. I'm with you completely.
I mean, right now, Eli Raridan ranks 25th in the country and number 1 at tight end in yards per game for a receiver at 91. Number 25 overall, right behind Jeremy Bernard, 0.7 behind Jeremy Bernard.
Man.
And, I mean, the next closest tight end is Jared Kanik at Oklahoma at 81.6. He's almost 10 yards ahead of the next closest tight end in yards per game at 91. So, again, keep getting him the ball. Keep getting Malachi the ball, but you also got to find some ways. And now, guys, that can be hard. There was clearly wanted to get Malachi going against A&M. You know who else they wanted to get going in the pass game? Jeremiah Love. I get that, but now it's time to get Jaden going. And that's going to be an important piece. Will Pauling's a good football player. I'm happy he's in Notre Dame. They got to, it's not like they're not getting the ball to Jaden and they're forcing it to Will Pauling. He's only got 2 catches as well. This is more of a slot problem to me than a Jaden Greathouse problem. They're just not getting the slot involved in the pass game. They need to fix that, but I think Jaden needs to be the primary beneficiary. And I wouldn't mind seeing some opportunities with him outside either in some of these looks as well. You've just got to give him the ball more. Just simple as that. You got to give him the ball more.
Agreed completely. Well, before we switch over to keys to victory for defense, Brian, I know there's a super chat that we wanted to bring up before we switched it over. Super chat from Raymond Hartman. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. Do you think there's anyone at Notre Dame self-scouting the offensive line and reporting the catching and not firing off the ball like the 2023 offensive line? Thanks.
Well, I think he meant 2024 offensive line, but yeah, I would say I don't know. I think there is. Normally there is. They normally have somebody that does that, Trev, but I can't tell you that they do, Raymond. And I'm not saying that like, oh, based on the way they're playing, I don't think that anybody does. I mean, look, here's what I know. I know the offensive line played better in game 2 than they did in game 1. So clearly they addressed some things and fixed some things, got better. But do they have someone that's basically saying, hey, man, we're not firing off the ball, we're not moving our feet? Honestly, if the offensive line coach can't see that while watching game film of his team, every team breaks down their film on Sunday. Before you move on to your opponent, you break down and grade your film from the game before. I know for a fact that Joe Rudolph watched every single play from the A&M game over and over and over and over because that's your job when you're grading the film. If he needs someone doing self-scouting to say, hey, we're not coming off the ball hard, then you need a new offensive line coach. But recognizing that something is happening and then getting them to play that way is not always the same thing. So that's another thing we could have, that's part of the attacking thing that we talked about earlier, Raymond, is the attacking, it's all across the board, and part of it's the offensive line. I want to see them take the fight to the Purdue front. I want to see them play with some fire. I want to see them play a little pissed off. Like just pretend somebody said something about your mama before the game. I mean, like that get me to play hard. Like just go in there and say, hey, man, these Purdue front 7 guys, they all talked about our mamas before the game, and go out there and get him. Like whatever. I don't care what it is. Or just have some freaking pride in the O-line tradition at Notre Dame to say, we're not going to just do our job. We're going to do our job and we're going to dominate you. That's what Quentin Nelson was trying to do every time I need to do my job. That's what Alex Barr tried to do every time he played. That's what Mike McGlinchey tried to do. That's what the great ones at Notre Dame for the most part have done is I'm not just going to try to do my job. I'm going to do my job and dominate you while doing it. And there's just, this team doesn't play with that kind of fire more often than not. And the only guy that I've really seen do it, I've seen Billy Schrauth do it at times, and I've seen Gerby do it at times. Gerby and Lambert had about 4 or 5 blocks in each of the last 2 games. 4 or 5 in each game where you're like, dude, when he figures it out, this guy's going to be a freaking stud. Like, he's not a stud yet because he still makes a lot of young guy mistakes. And by the way, today, I saw Gerby's mom tweeted today. Today's his birthday. So today's his 19th birthday. So happy birthday to Gerby. But he's still learning. But you can see glimpses of when that becomes the norm, and it will someday, as long as he's coached correctly, this is going to be fun to watch. This is going to be real fun to watch. Keep in mind that Gerby Lambert started about 12 games sooner than Charles Jagasol did in his career. Charles Jagasol did not get his first start till the bowl game of his redshirt freshman year. Gerby started the first game of his redshirt freshman year. So he's still in that developmental phase as a starter, which is fine. That's okay. I'm good with that. I would have wanted to see some of those guys sooner. But what gets you excited is you can live with some of the mistakes because some of the goods are like, that was really impressive. And eventually, the more he plays, the more and more that good is going to be there. But the fact that a redshirt freshman who's never played a meaningful down until the Miami game is the guy that's playing with, in my opinion, more kind of, I want to kick your butt than a bunch of veterans, except for Schrauth, is kind of a problem for me. Look, I've seen Anthony Knapp regress in this regard. He's not playing with the same fire he did last year in the run game. He's got to get back to that. Emil, he was better than he was in the opener. He still wasn't very good against A&M. I don't know what's happened to him. And my hope is that he can just continue to get better. But I need to see this line get back to where they're playing with some attitude and play pissed off. Like, That's what I want to see. But here's the deal, Raymond. If you need a scout or an analyst or a GA to come in and tell you that, first of all, you should have someone tell you that because that's them doing their job. But you should be like, yeah, bro, trust me, I know. I watched the film. We're going to get that fixed. If you don't know that as the O-line coach, if a receivers coach has got to be told, hey, man, your guys aren't coming off the line hard. Hey, your backside receivers aren't running hard. If a running backs coach has got to be told, man, hey, your footwork was all jacked up. You guys were getting downhill way too fast. If you've got to be told that by someone in self-scouting, then you should probably promote that person from self-scouting into your position coach role. Because if they don't already know that from watching film themselves, then you are in big, big, big freaking trouble. Big, big trouble.
Well, listen, folks, we're getting ready to talk some Notre Dame defense keys to victory. Before we get there, you guys know what to do. Make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Leave us a 5-star review on whatever streaming platform you listen to us on. It is greatly appreciated. But the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards. You see it scrolling down there at the bottom of the screen at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, in part 2 of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel, we're going to be talking Notre Dame defense keys to victory. And this is a significantly different conversation than what we just got done talking about on offense. The weekly theme this week on offense, adjustments. The weekly theme on this week for defense has been fix everything. And
Trev,
that is where we start.
The outline I gave you said at the beginning, we're going to intro, overview. Screw it. We're going to go right into number 1 because number 1 basically is the intro. I've never done a key like this before. I've never put this kind of key into a game. I've never said anything. It's going to come across to y'all as sarcastic. It's going to come across to you as insulting, condescending. I don't mean it at all. I'm being dead serious. The number 1 key for the Notre Dame defense against Purdue is change everything. And what I mean by that is not bench 11 starters and then put in 11 new guys because that doesn't fix anything because the same sickness that existed in the starters is still there with the backups. Change everything about who you are as a defense right now. That means you had to practice differently this week. Your focus, your preparation, your communication needed to be better. You need to change your philosophy of defense, which is let's always be in the perfect play. You know, let's make these checks and all this. Change your whole philosophy. Change your whole read and react belief system. Change your coverage structure. This is not a team still playing a high amount of zone man defense. But even when they do play man, it's soft. It's passive. It has no fight to it. It doesn't attack. It lets the offense dictate everything to it. Change your whole, hey, we're going to play off man and give up the inside. Change that. In college football, you want to be forcing quarterbacks to throw the ball to the outside, not giving up the inside. Change everything about how you teach zone coverage. Guys, this isn't about zone versus man because if they just call more man plays this week, and that's all they do, they don't change how they practice, how they prepare, how they communicate, how they're teaching fundamentals. They're still going to suck. And let's be honest, right now this defense sucks. It does. They gave up 27 points in the opener and 41 points in the second game. They're giving up over 30 points a game. They rank in the bottom 10% of almost every meaningful defensive category. Well, they played 2 good teams. I don't give a rip because you can't find 2 games where they were that bad last year against good teams. So change everything. How you practice, how you prepare, your structure, your philosophy, how you attack or don't attack. Everything's out the window and we're starting over from scratch. Well, what are you going to do? Okay, let's pop in some random film of a team that we think models how we should play. You're going to pop in that film and it's going to have a bunch of dudes wearing blue and gold. And Drake Bones will be like, hey, that guy playing middle linebacker looks a lot like me. Leonard Morris will be like, hey, man, that boundary corner, that dude looks a lot like me. What? Hey, Don Schuler, do you recognize that guy playing safety? That looks a lot like you. Because we've seen these guys do it before, so we know they can do it. But it's change everything. And there are some places where personnel needs to change. If Devontae Smith can't go this week, somebody other than Carson Hobbs has to go at nickel. Now, I know Marcus Freeman in his press conference today was talking about tried Christian Gray, we tried Ben Minnick, blah, 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 blah. Look, it's real simple, man. You got a stud that you recruited to play this position, play him. Coach him up and play him. And if that means you got to simplify your coverage structure so that a freshman can play, then simplify your coverage structure so a freshman can play, which you've done each of the last 3 years under Al Golden, which you have not done under Chris Ash. And this is on Chris Ash. And we have a question about that here that we'll get to at the end, a super chat from T-Bone that will respond to this. But this is on Chris Ash as the defensive coordinator. This is also on Marcus Freeman because you allowed this to happen. So fix it. Fix it now. Because if they just come out and they're a cleaner version of what they've been before, they may stop Purdue and beat Purdue, but you didn't fix anything. You didn't fix a darn thing. And if you watch the first 2 games and all you think is, hey man, we just got to clean up a couple things and make a couple adjustments, then you don't deserve to be in the position you're in right now. You don't. Find something else to do or find some other level to coach at. I mean, Trev, if I was look, as I said the other day, I coached 6 years of Division III football and 1 year coaching at the FCS level. If I would have seen a team playing zone defense the way that Notre Dame played zone defense at the D3 level, I would have laughed. I would have been like, this is a joke. Like, they don't have a clue what they're doing. You're going to play cover 3, and you got a 3-by-1, all vertical releases, and you don't get hands on anybody? That's zone coverage 101. You're going to play off-man coverage, and you're going to just give up the inside in a 2-minute situation versus speedy receivers? That's zone coverage 101. That's man coverage 101. You're going to play zone. If you're going to play zone coverage with no pressure, guess what? You're going to get beat. So everything needs to change about this defense. Some of the personnel needs to change, but it's just more so if Josh Burnham's healthy enough to play a goal line situation, then he's healthy enough to play in a normal situation. And if you don't get Josh Burnham more than 3 snaps, then something's wrong with you. If you watch your same defensive linemen not doing what they need to do, same linebackers, same DBs, but more so same coaching, then you've got bigger problems. If you allow it to happen again, Marcus Freeman, then this is on you. Right? Look, Urban Meyer gave him a recommendation. Maybe your agent gave him a great recommendation. People you wanted to change some things. It looked good in the spring. It looked good in the fall camp, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but it's clearly broken. If you don't fix this as the head football coach, this is on you. And if your adjustments are like, well, we just need to change out the nickel because the nickel's struggling. Well, yeah, he is. This goes way beyond changing the nickel. This goes into you need a blood transfusion on defense. You need to get rid of the dying, what's inside of you that's dying. You need to flush it out and put some fresh new stuff in because this isn't going to work. And if you don't do that, then the rest of this stuff doesn't matter. Because once you play a team that's legitimately good, it'll be right back to where that. Trevor, I said this before. If they go the next 10 games and win out, just because they're better than everybody they're going to play, and the offense keeps getting better, and they're better at doing what Chris Ash wants them to do, because they can get better at doing what Chris Ash wants them to do. They could go 10-2, make the playoff, but I pray that they don't have to play Ohio State, or Oregon, or Texas, or Alabama, or somebody with an offense with a pulse, because it'll be looking just like it did against Texas A&M. So this defense, first and foremost, more than anything else, needs a complete change in who they are. Complete change in who they are.
Yeah, they've been abysmal, and honestly, that's kind of insulting to the word abysmal. You've given up 812 total yards of offense in 2 games. 565 of those yards have came through the air. 289 of those 565 yards have came from your slot receivers in 2 games. You rank dead last in the country in tackles for a loss, and you're tied for dead last in the country in sacks generated. I don't want to hear, well, if we switch it, it might get worse. It literally can't. Like in some areas, it literally could not get worse. So there is no more excuses. And there's no more, well, you need time to do this. I don't give a rip about why and how Chris Ash came to South Bend. Hindsight is always 20/20. What do you do moving forward? And it has to change. And that's a non-negotiable. And that's the biggest issue with this defense moving forward.
Trev, I'm just getting so mad right now. You can talk about the players executing all they want. But you know what? I'm pissed that Kingston Villiamasa didn't come up with a sack on that last fourth down play. Pissed at that didn't happen. But you know why Kingston didn't come up with a sack at the end of the game? Because he's on the freaking bench. I keep hearing saying he should have been in coverage. No, Kingston should not have been in coverage. Drake Bowen was fine in coverage. It was a great throw and a great ball and a great catch. He should have never been standing up at that moment. Your most natural pass rusher is number 27. It's been that way from the moment he showed up on campus. And the only person that's close is number 5. How was he on the sidelines in those big moments of that game? How? That's not a player problem. What's Kingston supposed to do? Put himself in? Nah, coach, I'm going to go in and rush the quarterback on this one. Oh, okay. Sure, whatever you say, buddy. No. That's why I get so tired of the people. Oh, the players this, the players that. Players. No, this is you putting those players in position. You're telling me Logan Thomas is good enough to be on the field on 4th freaking down against Georgia in the freaking playoffs, but he can't get a snap and a meaningful down where a pass rush is needed against Texas A&M at home? Are you serious? This is a coaching problem, not a player problem. Your most gifted pass rusher is standing by the freaking coach. He had as much of a chance to sack the quarterback as I did in the press box because he was playing as much as I was on that play. That's a you problem for the coaching staff, not a player execution problem. Kingston could only execute standing there. That's it. That's why I'm so sick of players got to execute this. No, they don't. You're failing this team, not them. You're failing them. They didn't all forget how to play football in one offseason. You ruined this, not them. You got to fix it. So, Chris Ash, go into Mike Mickens' office and be like, hey, man, my bad on taking some of this away from you. Let's go back to doing what you do. Because last I checked, he's in demand. The only person that wanted to put Chris Ash in a position of prominence was Marcus Freeman. That's it. If Marcus Freeman didn't hire Chris Ash, he's still a scout in the NFL. Or maybe an analyst for a D1 football team. That's it. Nobody else wanted him. You wanted him. So this is on you. Fix it. Because I'm tired of the players getting blamed for the crap that the coaches do. We did this crap under Brian Kelly, and it made me sick. Well, if this guy would have executed, and if that guy would have executed, it's the same story every big game they played in. Why did the players always choke in big games? Maybe they're not the ones that were choking. Why did Louisville's players always step up in big games? Maybe they were prepared by the people getting paid millions of dollars who are paid to teach and develop. They were getting instructed to do the right things, prepared the right way, given the right mindset. This team isn't. And it's not because of Leonard Moore or Christian Gray or Drake Bowen or Kingston or Don Schuler. It's because of Chris Ash and Marcus Freeman and that coaching staff. So it's up to you to fix it. And I can talk about whatever schematic things. I can talk about, be good on 3rd down, win on 1st down, force more turnovers, get more pressure against one of the worst O-lines in college football, which they're going to face this weekend. And it doesn't mean anything if you don't fix you. And at the end of the day, that's the problem. No, Kingston should have been covering the tight end. When have you ever seen Kingston Villiamasa make a play down the field in coverage in his college career? When? Do you know why? Because Al Golden didn't ask him to do that. You know what Al Golden asked him to do in those situations? Hey, bro, go get the dang quarterback. Why? Because that's playing to his strengths. So if that doesn't get fixed, at the end of the day, none of this is going to change. You may look better against Purdue. Guys, let's be real about this. They're improved. They still stink. I think Barry Odom's going to do well at Purdue. I think by the end of the year, they may be better. They just got smacked at home by USC. So in one offseason, Lincoln Riley got that team able to go play, but you can't? No, stop blaming the players. Look in the freaking mirror. And I hope that the comment that Marcus Freeman made on Monday at the press conference is truly how he feels. He was responding to a question about Jeremiah Love after the game. Jeremiah Love said, we all as players got to look in the mirror. And Marcus said, well, that's how great coaches are too. Well, we're going to find out if they have great coaches at Notre Dame, because if they're not doing some serious heart-to-heart, soul-searching, it's on me, legitimately, not the Brian Kelly, it's on me, but he doesn't really mean it or believe it. I mean the real, this is on me. I'm the reason we're here, so it's up to me to fix it, not they got to execute my defense better. But no, I did a piss-poor job of preparing these young men to go be successful on the field. If Notre Dame players can't learn your defense, you're the problem. Do you think Al Golden had a simple defense? No. That's why the Bengals hired him. That's why he was coaching for the Bengals before. And I mean actually coaching, like not like a backup scout, but an actual coach who actually called third down plays for a team that played in the Super Bowl, like an actual coach. If that doesn't change, Trev, then none of this other stuff matters. None of this adjusting your coverage structure. None of that's all a byproduct of we implemented a philosophy that is bad, that doesn't fit the personnel, and we're blaming them for why we're failing as coaches. I don't want to hear it. This is on you. I don't want to hear Marcus talk about, well, we got to execute better. You got to coach better. You got to do a better job putting the right people on your staff. Every coach makes mistakes. I've said this a million times. But if you allow it to continue, that's on you. That's on you. You're a defensive coach. You can't look at this and say it's just an execution problem, and if we coach a little better and a little bit more attention to detail, we're going to be better. No. They need a blood, what might be better? They need a heart transplant. And it's got to start up front. It's at the top, I should say. At the top. Marcus Freeman, then Chris Ash, then on down. If that doesn't change coming out this weekend, then we got big problems. Some of that's changing personnel at the player in certain situations or in starting lineups. You got to make a change in nickel. Can't keep doing that. You got to get Kingston involved more in rushing the quarterback. Put him on the edge and spine him. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's waste one of our more talented players. Sure, sounds like a great idea. I'm a little fired up. I wasn't planning on going off like that today, Trev, but it just fires me up. The more and more I think about all the crap, it's like, because you know why I'm mad? Because I thought we were done with this crap when Marcus Freeman did what he did last year. I thought we were done with this. I thought we'd put this BK stuff behind us. I really did. I thought we had put the poor hiring, the lack of accountability, the making excuses. I thought we'd put all that behind us. And I hope that we have. And that's why I'm so pissed about what we saw on Saturday. And the reason I'm pissed is because you had 2 weeks to prepare and 2 weeks to make that change, and you doubled down on stupidity. And I can't accept that. Not at Notre Dame, not with this football team, not with this talent. And these players deserve better. I'm sorry. You're telling me after watching the safeties play the first 2 games that Jadon Blair can't get on the field? Are you serious? Are you seriously going to tell me that? You're telling me Logan Thomas can't help this football? You're telling me Josh Burnham only deserved 3 reps? He was your best lineman in the opener. He was your best end in the opener. Like, what was one of the big plays of the game? They got beat on the 3rd and 12 on an outside run. Well, guess what Josh Burnham's really good at? Well, you can't rush a passer. Neither can anybody else you have. So at least put a guy in there that plays hard, can set the edge, and does his job. You're telling me Logan Thomas offers no value to this defensive football team? You're telling me Dallas Golden offers 0 value to this defensive football team? You're telling me Jadon Blair offers 0 value to this defensive football team? You're telling me Armel Mukam offers 0 value to this defensive football team? Well, maybe if that's true, then maybe you're not the recruiters that I thought you were. It's frustrating. It shouldn't be this way. And you got worse in week 2. Well, they say the biggest improvement a team makes is game 1 to game 2, and I said that's a little overstated. Well, they made a big old statement going from game 1 to game 2. Because you know why partly why A&M did better? Because A&M had film. Miami didn't. A&M thought, this is what Notre Dame is doing? Cool. And they abused it.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, key to victory for the defense, change everything. That's it. Change everything.
I'm glad you brought that up the way that
we
you
can
did.
go to the rest. We can still do the next 3.
No,
yes,
I get you.
Those things don't matter if this doesn't change.
No, 100%, man. I mean, I called you before the show, and I have 2 articles that are coming out tomorrow, and it's 3 biggest storylines. And look, at the end of the day, I could have put together some fluff piece around, Boubacar has to win against Purdue's left tackle, and Leonard Moore has to win against Nitro Tuggle, and I could have wrote some article like that, but it doesn't matter. To the point that Brian was talking about, you know what I've been thinking about the last couple of days, man? We always talk about, sometimes it comes down to the Jimmies and the Joes and not the X's and O's, and that's always about the players. It's about the coaching staff, too. I've watched defensive coordinators at Notre Dame post 2016 come in and coach up defenses that had a third of the talent from top to bottom and look better than what this unit has.
Yeah.
I think that's what's frustrating. That's the thing that kills me too. But at the end of the day, this is why this is the love-hate relationship that I have with being a show me person, because I've talked all offseason long that even though all the signs were there for Notre Dame to repeat and have another great season, it's why I love and hate how I view this stuff. But then at the end of the day, you look at the product that gets put out onto the field, and this is what it is. Look, at the end of the day, if they don't change anything, the other 3 keys that we're going to talk about just aren't going to matter. And I hate to say that, because that's such a horrible spot to be in. But like a lot of the other people, I'm just drained. It's exhausting. It feels like we just watched an entire season of up and down roller coaster football, and Notre Dame's played 2 games, and it's week 4.
Trev, Mike Elko stepped into a situation where he had to replace Brian Van Gorder. He had to fix that train wreck. And in game 2, at home against an SEC team that went on to win the SEC and play for the national championship, they held them to 20 points.
Yep.
A team that had 3 high draft picks at running back. DeAndre Swift was the 3rd string running back on that football team. A team that had Nick Chubb, Sony Michel, and DeAndre Swift had first-round draft picks on the offensive line. They held them to 20 points. 20 points. And Mike Elko, who took over and Lou Samoji said this, so if he says it, I believe it's true. The worst 3-year stretch of run defense in Notre Dame history. That's what Mike Elko is walking into, with not, like you said, not even close to the talent that this team's going to have across the board. There were some guys that were legit studs on that team. He had one heck of a linebacker core in 2017. So does this unit. And they came out that year, Notre Dame, and gave up 16, 20, 20, 18, 17, 10, 14, 14 points. It wasn't until November that they gave up more than 30 points in a game.
Yeah.
And he had to fix what Brian Van Gorder broke. I mean, like Clark Lee's first game as a defensive coordinator, first game of his career as a defensive coordinator. Like, I don't even think Clark Lee was an defensive coordinator in high school. First game ever as a defensive coordinator, he plays against Michigan and they hold him to 17 points. He gave up 17, 16, 17, 27, 17, 23, 14, 22, 21, 13, 3, 17. And he didn't give up over 30 points in a game until the playoffs against Clemson. And you're going to tell me that Clark Lee and Mike Elko were in a better situation, talent-wise, program-wise, than what Chris Ash walked into? Really? Really? That's what you're going to try and tell me? No. This isn't on the players.
No.
This is on the coaches. That's who this is on.
Well, moving on. And like we said, none of this is going to happen unless things change. But what we also need to see for Notre Dame to get a victory on Saturday against Purdue is they have to attack, which goes into changing of the philosophy. It's been an extremely, extremely passive defense, which has caused the missed tackles. That's caused the busted coverages. That's why in back-to-back games, you've had two veteran safeties underplay go balls on double moves and just not attack the football. It's that lack of defensive identity and philosophy and being an aggressive downhill football team, violent football team that has caused this to be the number 2 key to victory. But Brian, this defense has to attack. Absolutely has to attack downhill.
Now we start talking about, okay, what does the change look like?
Yeah.
Right? Just went on a rant about it's got to change. You got to change this. So what does that look like? Go on the attack. Be more aggressive. Dictate to your opponent how the game is going to go. You have better players than every team you will play and every team you have played so far. So take the fight to them. You've got athletic, rangy linebackers. So why are you asking them to be stationary players? Why are you not allowing them to run to the football? Why is Jaden Ausberry basically playing in a little tight box? Why is Kingston basically not being allowed to, he's really good off the edge in the opener, and then we're not going to see him do that in game 2? I mean, Kingston had some of the few good pass rushes we saw in the opener were from him. And so you're going to use him to spy Marcel Reed? Marcel Reed? Really? So it's a mindset, Trev. It's go on the attack. If you're going to play zone coverage more, okay, fine. Again, this isn't a zone versus man thing. Then you teach your DBs and your linebackers to reroute the crap out of these wide receivers. It's 3rd and 10. Don't let them get a free release up the field. Be aggressive on them. Get your body into their body. Throw off the timing of the routes and the throws. Force everything back outside. Be more aggressive. Attack the football. Get your linebackers playing downhill, even more so than we saw in game 2, because we saw a step in that direction in game 2. We saw Drake Bowen being allowed to play downhill a little bit more. But turn them loose. Turn your D-line loose. Be more aggressive with your scheme. If you're going to play cover 3, fine. Then give me a 5-man pressure zone fire cover 3 that looks to attack weaknesses in their pass protection. When you just drop back and rush 4 guys all the time, Trevor, if they have solid offensive linemen, you're not going to have a ton of success doing that because you're not threatening them at all. Your tackles are going to pass set. Your guards are going to protect against inside moves. So your tackles can overset to that side where they don't have a pass rusher coming at them. And if the guy makes a double move, then your guard dares to take him over. Same thing inside. If I'm not being blocked, if I'm the center and I don't have anybody coming at me, both guards are occupied, both tackles are occupied, I can then work my way out to where if somebody gets bleed, I can go help them out. Like you're not gonna have a ton of success there. Not if you're doing that consistently. So the whole thing is you've got to be more aggressive. You've got to attack. You've got to take the fight to Purdue. Here's the reality. If you attack especially this offensive line, look, Purdue has improved their roster in a lot of ways. One area where they have not improved their roster a great deal is the offensive line still isn't very good. And Trev, what was the numbers? Things USC had something like 30 sacks or 30 pressures in that game, something like crazy like that.
USC had 31 total pressures and 12 hits plus sacks on the quarterback.
That's
in a game.
Yeah.
In a game. For reference, Notre Dame has 34 total pressures and 6 hits plus sacks on the quarterback in 2 games.
So are you going to tell me that USC has a better defensive line than Notre Dame? Is that what people are going to try to tell us? Maybe the talent's not as good. Okay, well, I mean, I'd like to think that Notre Dame has better talent than Utah State and Texas San Antonio. I mean, I'd like to think that. So, Ball State had 14 pressures and 3 sacks plus hits on the quarterback against Purdue. Ball State.
Look,
so this should be a game where the Notre Dame offensive line should be able to go out, or defensive line should be able to go out there and have pressure, but you've got to turn them loose. You got to let them attack. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for the record, they only had 9. Ball State only had 9 against Auburn, and had 19 against New Hampshire. So This is a game where you should be able to be successful, but you've got to turn them loose. You've got to let them attack. You've got to let them play aggressively. Again, if you're going to play zone coverage, be physical at the line of scrimmage. Be physical throughout a route. This isn't like a guy's 8 yards on the field and you knock him down. That's not good football. That's not legal football. It's about getting so like when Carson Hobbs is going to open up on cover 3 and run vertically with a guy, you're getting that elbow into his chest and you're knocking him off course. That's what you're doing. You're jamming a guy up when you can. When you're playing man coverage, you're getting physical with that guy. They're just kind of opening and turning and running, and they're not getting hands on. They're not using their hands. They're not being physical with their hands. This is not a real physical football team because they're not. It's like you can't have a passive game plan, a read and react game plan, but then say, okay, but now we need you guys to pin your ears back and go. You can't have a game plan that all week is practicing on patience, and then say, okay, but now we need you to turn it up and go. Games on the line, we need you to turn it up and go. No, this is who you built them to be. So it starts at the change everything. You got to prepare. You got to practice fast. You got to practice aggressively. You've got to practice with intensity if you want them to play that way. And then you've got to call a game that way. And it's not just, well, what coverage would you like to see them call? It's not about that. It's because even when they're going man, there's a lack of aggressiveness. There's a lack of physicality. There's a lack of attacking the football. Even when they're playing man, it's an overall philosophy of read, react, passivity. That's what we're saying. That's what needs to change. And so it's the mindset that goes into this is what it's got to be.
And if they're able to pin their ears back and they're able to get after the quarterback, which they should be able to, because if you can't against Purdue, Notre Dame just doesn't have a legitimate pass rush. I'm not going to expect to see it at any other point in this season, maybe when they get to Stanford. With that being said, third key to victory is getting Ryan Brown uncomfortable. Here's one thing that I thought that was really interesting, Brian, and you and I were talking about this before the show. When I looked at Ryan Brown's over-under on FanDuel for passing yards, it was set at 167.5. We talked about this last night again on the spread option. It pained me to do so. I am hammering that over. Absolutely hammering that over. Notre Dame's a passing defense. They gave up 360 yards to Marcel Reed on 17 completions. So this is one where Ryan Brown is a quarterback. Look, Purdue has done some good things in the portal. They made some additions. Now, offensive line was not one of the things that was addressed, not nearly as severely as it should have been. But this is a good quarterback. And they have good talent on the perimeter that if we've seen anything, we watched this Notre Dame secondary make Malachi Toney, a 17-year-old true freshman, and Mario Craver look like Bolitnikoff Award finalists. And if I'm Michael Jackson III, Purdue slot receiver, and if I'm Ryan Brown and I'm popping in that film, I'm licking my chops getting ready for this game and getting ready to go put on a show for the third week in a row. But at the end of the day, you got to find a way to make Ryan Brown uncomfortable in the pocket, because if not, he can't hurt you. If you don't believe me, people can go back and watch the Illinois-Purdue game from last season, that 50-49 overtime game. Ryan Brown had 297 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and 118 rushing yards. He can hurt you. Got to get him uncomfortable.
He started 5 games, I believe, and he's thrown for at least 297 yards in 3 of those 5 games. And he's got a better receiving core this year than he had last year.
Went for over 300 against USC.
And went for over 300 in the opener against Ball State as well. And played 3 quarters of that game.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you're going to have to be aggressive. Take the fight to them. Because if they do, Trevor, then what will happen is they're going to get to him a lot. He won't have a lot of time to throw. He won't get into a rhythm. And it'll throw that offense completely out of whack. And what he'll also do is, if you really go at him, is he will be able to he'll force throws. He's an aggressive-minded quarterback. And if you're going to get a guy like that out of rhythm, he's going to make mistakes because he's not going to just take a bunch of sacks. He'll get sacked, but he'll try to get the ball out. He'll force throws. And if you're aggressive in your coverages, if you're coming downhill in your robbers aggressively and you're hunting for the football, that's the thing. It's like, it's not even just about being physical. It's about an aggressive attacking mindset. When Adon Schuler would come down last year in robber coverage, he was hunting for a route. He was hunting for the ball. And you go get it. And you're not seeing that now. And you should have. So if you go at it then if you attack it, then I think what will happen is you'll also get the football more. And which is key number 4. So we can just kind of, save some time and get to that. That's key number 4. It all ties in together. And then it all ties into key number 3 also, Trev, which is you just can't let Ryan Brown get comfortable. So these last 3 kind of go together, but 3 and 4 especially. If you're aggressive and you go after Brown, you mix up your coverages, you're aggressive with how you go, and then you attack him, get him uncomfortable, he will make mistakes. He's going to make some plays in this game too. He's a good player. If Notre Dame was playing defense like they did last year, Ryan Brown's going to make some plays in this game. He's a talented kid. Even with the offensive line issues that they have, he's going to make some plays. I'm okay with that. First time they give up a pass play, I'm not going to be like, well, here we go again, unless it's because they're doing the same stuff. But if they're making a change and they still get beat deep, I'm like, hey, that's a pretty good quarterback you're going against. He's got a much improved receiving core. I mean, guys are going to make plays. Northern Illinois completed an 80-something yard touchdown pass against Notre Dame last year and only scored 16 points. Those things will happen a time, but it can't be where you then like if they give up the 90-yard touchdown pass to Mario Craver, but then do what they're supposed to do the rest of the game, Notre Dame wins that game 40-17. But it's you let it happen a second time, a third time, a fourth time, a fifth time, a sixth time, and at no point in time did Marcel Reed ever feel uncomfortable. Well, I shouldn't say that. There's a time late third, early fourth where I felt they were finally making him uncomfortable, and he kept throwing the ball into bad spots. And then game on the line, you're right back to where you were before. Playing off coverage, not being aggressive, not going after the quarterback, letting him sit in the pocket, and they get you beat. Got you beat.
Definitely not a mystery that Ryan Brown threw 3 interceptions, including a pick 6 in a game where he was pressured 31 times.
Yep.
Recipe for success is relatively simple, but Brian, I do know that there's a super chat that we wanted to get to before we switched over, made the transition over to game predictions.
Yeah, and I will bring up a second one from Trevor Rocket. It's about the offensive line, but we got that one up later, so we will address this defensive one from T-Bone first, and then we'll get to the offensive line one.
From T-Bone, Brian, Xavier Watts was phenomenal. Riley Leonard was great. Howard Cross was
underwhelming. I think he meant Riley Mills on that one, by the way, because he's talking about the defense, but he just spelled it wrong. But just quick,
Riley Mills was great. Howard Cross was underwhelming. JC was excellent. We've been blessed at the nickel. How important was that to this defense, or is it all Ash's ego? I'm genuinely asking.
That's a fair question. Like, listen, if all those players being gone meant there was some regression on defense this year, that would be understandable early in the season. But what kind of regression are we talking about? Not giving up 15 points a game to over 30 points a game. That's not regression. That's something much bigger. If they would have, I mean, in the Miami game, didn't even bother me as much. Now looking back at it, it bothered me at the time because they weren't playing their defense. But like the 27 points to Miami is what I'm saying didn't bother me. The way that they allowed the 27 points is what bothered me. But it's T-Bone. It's like, listen, I get you don't have Xavier Watts anymore, but you do have Jalen Stroman, who's a veteran player. You do have Tay Johnson, who's an incredibly gifted young player. You have Jadon Blair, who's an incredibly gifted young player. You have Leonard Moore. You have Christian Gray. You have Drake Bowen. You have Jaden Osbury. You have same linebacker we had last year. And he didn't even mention Jack Kaiser, who was a heck of a player for Notre Dame last year. I mean, I get all that. But the reality is you still have a very talented team. And at the very least, so you don't have a top 5 defense now. You have a top 15 defense now. Okay, that would be regression that I wouldn't love, but I can live with because you're still pretty good. If they have a top 15 defense or a top 20 defense right now, Notre Dame is 2-0. They're 2-0. They have a top 115 defense right now, the way that they're playing. Like that's the problem, T-Bone, is your points are valid in regard to, with no context of the regression of just saying, hey, look, you lose Xavier Watts, who is phenomenal. One of the greatest safeties ever played the game in Notre Dame, according to Brian Driscoll. So using my own words against me. Riley Mills was a great player. Howard Cross was underwhelming, sure, but Jordan Clark was excellent, which he was. Jack Kaiser was a heck of a player, which he was. Isn't it fair to have some level of expectation of regression? And I'd say, you know what? That's a fair point, T-Bone. But this isn't regression. This is an utter collapse. And that's not about the players. That's not about the players. That's about Chris Ash. That's about Chris Ash and Marcus Freeman, especially Chris. I mean, again, Marcus Freeman's responsible because you're the head coach. It all rests on you. You allowed this to kind of get to this point. But it ultimately, specifically to the defense, it's ultimately about Chris Ash basically saying, I'm going to do what I want to do, the way that I want to do it. I don't care what worked for them in the past. And I just think that's a woefully bad way of going about it. And even if he was going to go about it that way, say, listen, man, I'm a zone guy. That's what I was hired to do. We're going to coach a zone. Cool. I get it, bro. I do. But then study the team that you inherited and incorporate your desire to be more of a zone-oriented team to the specific skills of this player. That's what I'm referring to, Trevor. It's not even just about, okay, you've got to repeat Al Golden's defense. We never said to do that, but it was always about the principles that made this team so good are what you need to be doing. That's the difference. You need to be doing more of that. You need to be doing more things where you're allowing your football team to be more aggressive, to be aggressive, to attack, to use your speed, to use your length, to use your skill to play at a high level within the specific coverage structure you want to do. You've never once heard me say, why are they playing zone? Zone sucks. It's not even about that. It's like when we did the Upon Further Review breakdown, which is on the premium message board. Trev, we broke down play after play after play, and not once did you see a receiver or DB even try to get hands on the receiver. Not once. That's what I'm talking about. You've taken away you've changed your system in a way that does not play to the strengths of the players you have.
The system and the philosophy of this defense highlighted the fact that you lost those guys.
Right.
That's the issue, T-Bone, honestly. I mean, you go back and I love Jordan Clark and what he did. He was a much better player than I anticipated him being last season. Not that I thought that he sucked. I just didn't think that he was going to be the type of player that he was. But at the end of the day, the scheme is what set Carson Hobbs up for failure for whatever reason. And yes, I understand that he was hurt last game. Devontae Smith still played like half of the defensive snaps when he was healthy against Miami for reasons that I don't quite understand. But at the end of the day, Jordan Clark last season in 16 games out of the slot gave up 308 receiving yards. Your slot corners in 2 games have given up 289 in 2 games. So unless they're going to give up 6 receiving yards in the next 10 games, it's not always a player thing. It's not. And that's the heartbreaking thing about this defense. So I'm with Brian. Big picture, I understand where you're coming from, man, but the philosophy is setting these kids up in a horrible spot and highlighting these losses more than really what they should. One from Trevor Rocket, the guy with the awesome name. Appreciate the super chat, Trev. Trevor and Brian, I'm ready for Saturday against an old rival. It's put up or shut up time for the offensive line and Coach Rudolph. It's time to begin the process to get back to O-line U. God bless you both. God bless both of you lads. IB for life.
Thank you, Trevor. Appreciate that very much, man. Trevor's one of my favorite Canadians, obviously with Father David. Got a couple others in the chat that we appreciate you, man. No, it is time for that. There's no doubt. And they haven't been O-line U since Joe Rudolph's been here at Notre Dame, in my opinion. Not once have you said, boy, I think that's one of the best lines of college football. It's not too late for this one to get there. It's not. You just got to figure it out and get them there.
And super chat from Beefeater ND08. Super chat for throat lozenges after that rant. Now we just need some aromatherapy. The scent of fired ash would help everyone relax.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can't jump in there on that. I'm just not a big proponent of firing people, but just because you're not going to fire someone doesn't mean that they have to continue to do the job the way that they're doing it, or even that that's the role they're in. And then one more from Beefeater, and then we're going to jump into the game predictions next.
Thank you for the super chat, Beefeater. I would argue the worst thing Ash has done is kill the confidence and swagger of our young players with a moronic and unfamiliar zone scheme.
Agree.
Just the philosophy up top.
Yep.
Yep. Agreed. Well, listen, Folks, that's going to do it for part 2 of today's show, but don't go anywhere. We are getting ready to jump into game predictions. We're also going to talk some game records. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Make sure you have that notification bell hit so you know whenever we go live here. But as always, the best way to support what we do is the premium message boards. You see it scrolling down there. Brian has already talked about a lot of the film breakdowns that he's putting out there. Upon further review, very popular show that we do here on Irish Breakdown. That is now solely for premium message board members at boards.irishbreakdown.com. Brian, it is now time for game predictions here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by FanDuel. Basically, what we do is we're going to give our score prediction, and then we're going to talk through how we see this game playing out. And then once Brian and I both give our predictions, we're going to talk some game records, some on offense and some on defense. Typically, this is our favorite part of the segment in Keys to Victory shows, on Thursday shows here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. But look, at the end of the day, I had a rough time with this game prediction because there's part of me that just I genuinely don't know what to see. And I am now with this entire football team in straight up show me mode, which has fed into what my prediction is going to be for this game. So, Brian, I'll go ahead and get us kicked off with game predictions, and then I'll kick it back over to you. But right now, my final score prediction for this game, I have Notre Dame winning 45-24. Look, at the end of the day, this offense shouldn't have any problem scoring on Purdue's defense. The offense didn't have any problem scoring on Texas A&M's defense either. They put up 33 offensive points with not scoring on the first drive of the game or scoring on the first drive of the second half, and with throwing a drive-killing interception and not being able to capitalize off of turnovers. Still put up 33 offensive points. So what has this offense shown me? They can put points on the board. I think they get 45 points this week on offense. Athlete to athlete, Notre Dame clears across the board, but they have to be able to take care of the football and be clean operationally. That goes back to some of the keys to victory that I talked about on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, I have zero confidence right now they'll be able to stop Purdue's offense. On paper, yes, we can have that conversation that, they should be able to and yada, yada, yada. But from what we've seen, the trend has not really been favoring to Notre Dame's defense. So how I see this playing out, I think Notre Dame's defense is going to struggle to stop Purdue in the offense. It'll be somewhat of a back and forth affair, but also per the trends that we've seen, Notre Dame defense starts to put together in moments in the second half where they can kind of string together a stop or two. And the benefit of playing Purdue at home, I just don't think that they're going to need a game-winning stop in this one, because I think the offense is going to handle business and put this one away early. Notre Dame is ahead the majority, if not all of the game, but they won't be able to stop Purdue from putting points on the board. And I think Ryan Brown is going to have a heck of a day in South Bend. Unfortunately, I would take his over at 167.5, but I do have Notre Dame winning 45-24, Brian.
So you said 45-24. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So basically for Trevor, for you, it's your defense is going to do what it's going to do. It's been doing until you see it differently. I don't disagree with that at all, honestly. I've been back and forth on this one, how many points I think Notre Dame is going to score. I'm actually going to go 35-24 is my prediction. And I think the Notre Dame offense is going to play fine. I think this is an improved Purdue defense. I just watched a USC team that had scored over 60 points its first 2 games. Again, not against very good teams, but Purdue's not supposed to be a very good team. And they went and scored a mess of points against them. I think when I look at this Notre Dame offense, I think it's unfair to ask CJ Carr to go out there and lead you to 40-plus points every week. He's going to have some games where he doesn't play great football. It's just going to happen for a redshirt freshman. And, I think this Purdue front seven is improved. I mean, USC only averaged 4.5 yards per carry. They grinded out some yards late when they had a lead. I think Notre Dame is more than capable of scoring over 40 on this team, but I'm kind of with you. I need to see this Notre Dame offensive line play dominant football before I'm ready to jump in and say, okay, they're going to play dominant football. I think Notre Dame is going to win this game. I don't think it's going to be an overly close game. I don't think it's a game that we're worried about in the fourth quarter. It's not that. It's a game that I think Notre Dame's going to win, and they're clearly the better team, but I just need to see the defense and the offensive line actually show me that they can play at a high level before I go. And I just think this is a Purdue team that, seeing some of these scores, I don't disagree with a lot of you that these scores are possible. I think Damo had 48-17. I've seen other people like 50-something to where was it, 51-34? I could see that, from Casey Mack. I've seen Pete Weber at 41-21. I could see that. Justin Sniper 54-28. I could see that. Ray Holcraft had 52-40, 52-24. I could see that. Heck, I.M. Tenzin had 65-42, and I think he was being somewhat kind of funny, but dude, it wouldn't completely blow me away if they did that. D-Rock Irish had 45-32. I think that's a very reasonable score prediction. I just think Notre Dame is just going to, have a couple sloppy series on offense and not completely overwhelm Purdue. I think Purdue is good enough to kind of slow down the Notre Dame run game, at least potentially early, if they keep playing like they're playing. Look, Trev, the reality is this, dude. Let's be real about something. If Notre Dame comes out and plays their game offensively and they hit on our keys to victory, right? They start fast. They come out and they attack Purdue. They play with a good pace. They're aggressive. They play smart. They play together. They play clean assignment football, and they get the ball to Jane Greathouse. Notre Dame score over 50 points on this team. Definitely over 40, no question. But kind of like what you said with the defense, I now need to see them do that, though. And, I need to see them do that. I'm concerned. I'll just be real about it. I'm concerned that one of the things that Marcus Freeman is going to do in this game, because of the struggles of his defense, I think he's going to basically go into this game and say, hey, Mike, we need to slow it down, run the clock, run the ball, and just kind of like we talked about last year against Northern Illinois, kind of the mindset he had about Miami of Ohio. Let's just come out, not take any chances, don't make the big mistakes, and just don't put the defense in a bad position. That's my biggest fear in this game. And I hope I'm wrong on that. I really hope I'm wrong on that. But that's what he's done in situations like this in the past. So my hope is that he says, hey, Mike, let her loose. Let's go attack these guys. Let's go after these guys. Let's take advantage of our talent. And the O-line comes out, plays great football, and Notre Dame rolls. I think they're more than capable of that. If this is a 48-17 game, I'm like, yeah, that's certainly possible. But I still think Notre Dame has way more talent than Purdue. I think they're going to hit some big plays, run game, pass game. Because the thing about the Notre Dame offense so far is, even against A&M, they didn't move the ball up and down the field consistently. With these long drives, they had one. Everything else was basically big play oriented. They ripped off big plays. You had a 45-yard play that set up your first touchdown. I think your second touchdown was off of a 36-yard touchdown pass. You used big plays. You have not been an efficient offense. They actually had a lower run game efficiency against A&M than they had against Miami. So they've got to show me that they can be not only explosive, but also have more efficiency. If they do that, Trev, this could easily be a 48-17 game. If we go back and we're doing the upon further review and they hit all these keys, or even just both offenses hit 3 of the 4, this won't be a close game. Won't be a close game. Notre Dame will win going away. It'll be over at halftime. But they haven't been hitting most of their keys in games so far, and that's been the thing. So I'm torn. So I kind of took the middle ground. I don't think it's going to be a close game, but I also don't think it's going to be like this giant blowout. I went 35-24. I got Notre Dame winning. They're clearly the better team, but they're still a work in progress. But I just think this team just needs to, like you said before the show into the beginning, Trev, you just need to see this team. They just need to get on the board. They just need to taste victory and say, okay, we're going to be okay. And then just, yeah.
That was one of the reasons why I had a hard time with the prediction, if I'm just being 100% honest, man. I just want to watch them win. Honestly, I know that they beat Penn State, earlier this year in the Orange Bowl, but it just feels like so long ago since Notre Dame walked off the field with a dub, and that's kind of what fed into this being such a difficult decision. I'll say this before we get into game wreckers. If the philosophy in this game on offense is to not make mistakes and bleed out the clock because they're afraid that their defense can't stop Purdue, you got to make a change.
I don't know that his mindset is that they can't stop Purdue. It's more so that's kind of his mentality. That's, as a D coordinator, his mindset is, look, if you have a defense that's struggling, let's give them more time in between series. Let's limit the number of plays they got to be on the field. It's not so much to stop them, because I think if Marcus Freeman felt they couldn't stop Purdue, he would turn Mike Denbrock loose, knowing we've got to light up the scoreboard to win a shootout. So I just want to make sure I'm clear what I'm saying. It's not so much that they can't stop Purdue, but it's like, hey, look, we've got a struggling defense. We've got to get this right. They need more time in between series. They need to not play as many plays. We need to go on a couple 8, 9, 10 play drives and put points on the board. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that it's kind of an in-between of that. It's we do got to get our defense right. And that's just the mindset of a defensive coordinator. I mean, we kind of saw that early last season. And that's what my concern is that he then comes out and kind of imposes his will on the offense in that way. I hope that he says, hey, Mike, go do what you got to do. Sometimes that's going to result in a 7-8 play drive, and sometimes it's going to be a 3-play drive. That's okay. You've got enough depth. And that's the other thing, is the defense should never have that excuse. You've got a 2 deep on the front 7 that can put their number 2s in, and you're like, yeah, you're still better than what you're going against at Purdue. So, I mean, I get it. I think it's more so about a mindset of who Marcus Freeman is as a defensive coordinator. When you get into tough spots, you always kind of revert back to kind of your DNA.
Yeah.
And his DNA as a defensive coordinator is control the game, control the clock, limit possessions. So it's not about fear. It's just it's more so just it's that. It doesn't make it okay or I'm okay. I want to make sure it's not about they're not afraid they can't stop Purdue. Because if that was the case, I think they would know. They would say, hey, we gotta light it up. We got to do whatever we got to do to put points on the board, because we can't stop them whether they're going on 3-minute drives or 8-minute drives. That's what I would think.
I got you. No, that makes sense. I hope you're right. I also hope that Marcus Freeman wants to take his defensive philosophy and impose it on the defense, not just the offense. That would be ideal. But conversation for a different day. But game records, Brian, let's talk about it. I got 2 on offense and 2 on defense. Did you want to ping pong these back and forth?
Yep. Just give me yours and all yours, and then I'll give you mine.
Yep. My game records on offense, the first one, and this is a relatively simple one for me. I picked Jeremiah Love. I think that in the first couple of games, first 2 games specifically, we've talked ad nauseum about how you just can't ask your redshirt freshman quarterback to put an entire offense on his shoulders week in and week out. And we saw Jeremiah Love being an impactful player, just not an efficient player against Texas A&M. This is a defense that Jeremiah Love absolutely should be able to return back to true form. Now, a lot of this is also on the offensive line, and they're going to have to handle their business as well. Well, look, fact of the matter is, through the first 2 weeks of the season last year, Jeremiah Love was averaging 6.9 yards per carry. This season, he's averaging 3.8 yards per carry in his first 2 games and only has 1 rushing touchdown. He is another player that has to get back on track if this offense wants to play at a more efficient level. And I just went back to the basics. We talked all offseason long about how we believe Notre Dame has the best running back in the country. And I think that he has a prime opportunity to step up to the plate and be the best running back in the country against Purdue and give CJ Carr a little bit of a, okay, cool, like I don't have to go 24 of 34 for 290 yards and 3 touchdowns to be able to beat Purdue by 15. And I think a performance like that from Jeremiah Love, which he's more than capable of doing, I think that's going to put Notre Dame's offense in a really good spot. I'm not the only one that thinks that. When you go and you look at what the lines are from FanDuel, Jeremiah Love's over-under rushing yards right now is set at 101.5. So they also think that he's going to have a pretty good day. So
total yards for 101.5? Yeah.
Just rushing.
Rushing.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. Just rushing yards is 101.5. So that makes me feel a little bit better about my first game record prediction being Jeremiah Love. The second one that I have on offense, unfortunately, you can't bet on him for receiving yards, just anytime touchdown score. But my second one is Jaden Greathouse. This is a game that you have to get 1 going because there's no excuse now not to. We've seen what type of player he can be in big moments. We've watched Eli Raridan get involved. We've watched Malachi Fields get involved. We've watched Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price and Jordan Faison get involved. I watched KK Smith record a reception on the season before Jaden Greathouse did on the season.
That's so
not
gross.
On my bingo card.
And that's no knock on KK.
No.
KK's a talented kid, but it's just that's inexcusable.
Yeah. And so my theme this week for game wreckers are not necessarily players that I think are going to have big games. It's players that, setting the precedent moving forward, I think have to have big games. And Jaden Greathouse is that second guy for me. He's been targeted 4 times this season and has 2 catches. That is inexcusable. I thought those were going to be his numbers in the first half of the Miami game, if I'm being honest. And so it's time to get one going. Those are my 2 on offense, Brian.
So I have a few, Trev. I'm gonna go with here, and my number one is Jaden Greathouse. I mean, I can't make him a key to victory and then not having be my number one game wrecker. I mean, he needs to be more involved. I don't know that I have a lot of faith that it's going to happen, but it needs to happen. And it's not so much that you can't beat Purdue if Jaden Greathouse doesn't go off. You can beat Purdue by 30 and Jaden Greathouse doesn't have a catch, but it's about getting your offense in a position where you are truly an elite, anyone can beat you type of offense. Right now, you're taking the middle of the field away, not even the defense. And when you play better teams, if you play better teams and you're still playing the same way, but you've just out-talented people, then that's when you're going to start getting stopped again. So he has to be that guy. You need to get his confidence back up. You need to, and the other thing too is this is also for a young quarterback, he can't just go out there and just like be in love with everyone at once. He's going to get in some of these tight situations himself, and he's just going to go to kind of his security blankets. All young quarterbacks really do that, or almost all. And so you've got to do some things as a coaching staff. Say, hey, look, we need to force this partnership with CJ and Jaden. You've got to emphasize, you got to force, hey, look, this is where we want to go with the football. And kind of develop that connection of, hey, man, I don't care if the read tells you to take the hitch. If you're getting single high coverage and Jaden Greathouse is in the slot and we're running slot fade, unless that cornerback just flies off the ball and underneath this slot fade, you're throwing the slot fade. You know what I mean? And that's kind of where I'm at, is you need to get some of that. You need to force feed the football to Jaden Greathouse. Has to happen. That's my number one. My number two is, and this is all kind of you need to do that without then also sacrificing Malachi Fields and Eli Raridan still being your dudes, because those are your dudes. I mean, those guys are really good players. And I still feel like having your dudes be dudes in a game like this is important. And so far in the past game, your 2 dudes have been Eli Raridan and Malachi Fields. Like I said, I don't want to emphasize Jaden Greathouse at the expense of those 2 guys. And so it kind of goes hand in hand for me. So a lot of my focus is going to be on the receiving core from a skill player standpoint, Trev, because I just look at it as like, look, if the offensive line does their job, Jeremiah Love's going to go off. And Jadarian Price is going to go off. And the staff clearly cares about getting Jeremiah Love the football, as it should. He's your best player. And so I loved the game plan last week when it came to getting him the ball. I would have probably gone about it a different way in a couple of instances. I would have done Wildcat a little bit differently type of thing. Maybe get like some jets or some read options, just something to kind of mess with the other team, as opposed to them just all pinning their ears back. There's only one thing you're going to do right now, and that's run the football. There's no throw. We don't have to worry about sending a defender to engage with number 13. Yeah, he's not going to make a block on this play. And we can go at it. And so I like that. So that's why he's not on my keys to victory. He's not on my I get Jeremiah Love going. That's a kind of a given for me. I really think this is the key, is because what you can't do is, yes, it's a great start for CJ Carr, but you can't kind of, okay, it's great. Now team's got some film on him and now they're going to go down, because that's the other thing is, when teams start to say, okay, they really want to get 0 and 9 to football, so our game plan is going to be on stopping 0 and 9 in the passing game. All right, cool. Well, can you get somebody else involved, a.k.a. Jaden Greathouse? Great. But then number 2 is, if they're going to try to take some of those guys out of the game, can one of those 2 guys still be a factor? That's also part of coaching. Hey, look, man, they're just not going to let Malachi Fields beat you. They're bracketing him all game. All right, cool. Then there's no excuse for Eli Raridan and Jaden Greathouse not to go off. None. There's no excuse for you to, okay, they want to bracket him. Here's a thought. Run him on a post dig and bring Jeremiah Love on a wheel route right outside of him. If they're going to bracket him and play them that aggressively, that you know what I mean? That's the thing, is that you can do things, but there's no reason that Purdue should be able to shut down both of those guys. And that's why I think those guys are also still on my breakout players. I got another one, Trev, and then I might have a question for you.
Oh boy.
Anthony Knapp's my last game wrecker. The one thing I liked about Anthony Knapp last year, he wasn't a very good pass blocker, but the one thing I liked about Anthony Knapp last year is when he in the run game, that dude could get after it. He's been playing pretty tentatively, and I don't know what's going on. Is he thinking too much? There's been some MAs, like he got beat inside last week, like just a guy beat him across his face, and he just like I could live with his not being a great pass blocker because he was a really good run blocker. He hasn't been so far this year. They need Anthony Knapp to get back to being Anthony Knapp in the run game. They absolutely do. I mean, we can have the conversation of should he be your starting left tackle, whatever. He's going to be the starting left tackle. So we can get over that one. But if he's going to be your starting left tackle, then he's got to get back to being what he was, which is, dude, you're a really good run blocker. And they need you to be a really good run blocker. I mean, just no movement at the point of attack, blocking down in mid-zone and just letting a guy come off the edge, just getting beat across his face. You're just like, dude, this isn't you. This isn't who you need to be. I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the problem is, but they need to get Anthony Knapp back to playing like Anthony Knapp. Because I don't know what the point of having him out there if he's not going to be a really good run blocker. They need him to be a game wrecker. And I'll feel a lot better about the direction of this offense and you could throw Emil Wagner in there, but I mean, Emil's never been like a great run blocker. He's a good run blocker at times last year. But I mean, we said at times last year, Anthony Knapp was your best run blocker at times last year. I mean, I've said that. I've stated that emphatically, that over the course of the season, you could make a strong case that he was their best run blocker last year. It's between him and Rocco. But I would definitely make that. I mean, go look at what he did to Mikhail Kamara on that 98-yard touchdown run. Destroyed that guy. I see him do anything close to that this year. And Ruben Bain's really good. Okay, cool. Ruben Bain's good. The guys at Texas A&M aren't in the same league as Mikhail Kamara and Ruben Bain. Not even close. That is run defenders. Cassius Howell's a decent pass rusher, but they had another. I'm like, did they have a nose tackle playing defensive end? That guy looks and runs like a defensive tackle. I think it was like number 5 or something. I mean, what is this? This looks nothing like what they had last year at defensive end. So I want to see Anthony Knapp just come out and just kick some butt this weekend in the run game. Just flat out want to see him come out and just be a dog. Just go punish people in the run game. If you do that and give up a couple sacks, honestly, I'll live with that because like it is what it is. You know, they did a good job last week of we didn't talk a lot about this, but Jeremiah Love was going left a lot last week in pass pro. Okay, smart. But if you got to protect your left tackle in pass pro, it better be because he's dominant in the run game. And he hasn't been that so far. But he's capable of it. We know he is. We've seen him do it for an entire season. I mean, we saw him do it against A&M last year. I want to see Anthony Knapp get back to being Anthony Knapp. That's my final game record, Trev. Now, I'm going to ask you a quick question here. What's the one player that you think that we're not talking enough about that could have a big game for the Notre Dame offense?
Yeah, I'm going to go Gerby Lambert.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the few players that, like we talked about earlier in the show, is playing with a little bit more fire than what your left tackle is, your right tackle is. Center's still shaking off some rust. And Purdue's defense is pretty stout up the middle. They have good size along the interior. Their 2 best defensive players are both of their linebackers that transferred in from UNLV. You know, and they got that Miles kid from Colorado. So, like, the strength of their defense is up the middle. And if they want to get this run game going and make it a little bit more efficient, there's worse situations to be in than following your 6'7", 335-pound right guard. So I would say he's somebody that could have a big performance. But outside of that, I mean, no one else really comes to mind, if I'm being honest.
I like that one. I think we're going to see a big game from one of the non-big time receivers. I could see that. Some big plays. I could see Will Pauling kind of making a big splash this weekend. I could see Jordan Faison catching a pass beyond 10 yards. I think somebody that's a complimentary player, Jadarian Price, maybe Aeneas Williams, maybe a Ty Washington. I think we're going to see some kind of complimentary player have some big moments. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah,
Let's go to the game records on defense, Trev, and we'll wrap up with that.
Yeah, I got 2 on defense. First one, it's Boubacar Traore. And again, my common theme is it's players that I don't think will just necessarily have big games. I think it's players that have to have big games. We spent a lot of time talking about the woes of Purdue's pass protection. You got to find a way to get Boubacar Traore going. I'm going to pull my hair out one strand at a time if I see his philosophy, because Ryan Brown is a mobile quarterback. If Boubacar Traore is asked to anchor the left tackle or right tackle, whichever one that he's on, and just hold contain and not pin his ears back and try to get after the quarterback. Right now, he's your most talented edge rusher that you're willing to play. And I'm sticking with the philosophy that they're just not going to ask Logan Thomas or ask KVA to consistently blitz off the edge and rush the passer off the edge. So Boubacar Traore has played the 5th most snaps on defense this season for Notre Dame through 2 games, despite coming off of a knee injury that he suffered less than a year ago. So if that's going to be the philosophy, then fine, but you got to let him go eat. And Boubacar needs to account for multiple tackles for a loss. I'm hoping this is going to be a multiple sack game from him. So he's my first game wrecker on defense. My second one, again, out of the necessity, I think Christian Gray has to get back on track to being Christian Gray.
Yeah.
In the same light that you talked about Anthony Knapp, and we've seen him before maul people in the run game, you just got to get back to being you. Christian, this is a really good game for you to get back on track, because this is a good receiving core from Purdue. Saying that you did a good job between Armand Branch or Nitro Tuggle or, E.J. Horton or Michael Jackson III, if you're lined up against him, like, there's something to hang your hat on there. But right now, there's something going on with it. I don't know if he has the yips. I don't know if he's just not confident in himself right now. But Christian Gray has to get back on track, because we talked about before, this cornerback tandem has the potential to be the best cornerback tandem in the country between Leonard Moore and Christian Gray. But in order for that to happen, you need both sides of the field to be playing well. I think Leonard Moore, really outside of that really bad busted coverage and that double move that he fell for against Miami, thought for the most part he's played fine. Maybe not necessarily to the elite level that we thought yet, but right now all of that's being countered by the fact that Christian Gray is, there's no other way to put it. He's kind of just straight up getting picked on right now. And he's going to have to step up and show that, hey, I am still who people thought that I could be going into this year. So he's my second game wrecker, because I think he's going to have a good game on the outside, because I'm a betting man, and I'm willing to bet that Ryan Brown is not really going to test Leonard Moore all that much on Saturday.
I was talking to Sean Davis, I was talking to somebody else earlier today, and might have been Sean. I was on the phone all day today. It's partly what got me fired up. But I said, look, Leonard struggled in the opener, but Leonard was Leonard in game 2. Not even at 100%. He was Leonard at game 2. And honestly, if Notre Dame jumps out to a big lead in this game, and I don't know if they will, but if they do, I'm getting him out immediately and letting Mark or Dallas do a lot of snaps.
100%.
Like, if you're up 2-3 touchdowns, I'm getting him out and not even taking a chance of him aggravating that ankle injury. Like, honestly, if things weren't so bad on defense, I would honestly consider sitting him overall, period, if he had any soreness in the ankle, but because you're going to need him big time. But my number one is Kingston Viliama-Asa, because you need to turn this kid loose. He's the most versatile front 7 player you have. He can play Will, he can play Mike, he can rush off the edge. Like, there's no reason not to turn this kid loose and let him attack. Number one, and my number 3 is Drake Bowen. So I'm just going to kind of give these two together. My number 3 is Drake Bowen. You got to turn that kid loose. If we don't start seeing more Kingston and Drake on the field together, I'm just going to lose my mind. And you can do that 2 different ways. You can do that with them playing Mike and Will, that should be your starting linebackers. I'll keep saying it until they finally do it. Your starting linebackers in Notre Dame should be Drake Bowen at Mike and Kingston at Will. What about Drake and Mike? Well, if you play him at Mike, then there's less you can do with him. As a Will, you can move him around. You can bring him off the edge. There's just more you can do with him, and you can let him attack more as the Will. Those are your 2 best linebackers, and it's not close. They need to be starting together and playing together more. But you can also do it in pass rushing situations where you can put Kingston on the edge. Your 2 most naturally gifted pass rushers on your entire football team are Kingston Viliama-Asa and Boubacar Traore, who you mentioned. You're going to need them. Turn this kid loose in tons of different ways. Don't have him spy Ryan Brown. Turn him loose. He needs to be a game wrecker in this game, as does Drake. They're my 1 and 3. I just want to see those two kids just get let loose. I want to see all the linebackers turn loose. Jaden Osbury, Jalen, all of them. But those are your two best players. You got to turn them loose, and you got to finally find ways to get them going. And then my number 2 guy is Tay Johnson, because he's a starter now. I mean, Adon Schuler's out for the first half of this game. My hope is that Adon only plays a couple series in this game. He comes in the third quarter, they're up big. I don't want to sit Adon the whole game. I want to let him get some work. But I'm bringing him out in the third quarter, and if you're blowing Purdue out, he plays 2-3 series, and then you take him out. Let him, get a breather. But I want to see Tay come out this game, because I think Purdue's also going to try to go at him and try to confuse him with some double moves and some play actions to try to get Tay out of position. Because if you watched him play against A&M, you saw two things. Boy, this kid is athletic and rangy, but he's also young, and he's not always where he needs to be. Now, that's improvement that Tay needs to make. I think Purdue's going to go at them, and I think he's got to make him pay for it. And so I think he's going to be a game wrecker. I think he needs to be a game wrecker. I think if Tay handles business, they're going to have to really rethink what their starting lineup is moving forward with Tay and Adon starting. Because what I think they're going to do is I think they're going to move Jalen Stroman into Adon's position. This is what I think they're going to do. This is my prediction. They're going to move. They're not going to put Tay. Tay's going to replace Adon in the starting lineup, as in he's the second safety. But what I think they're going to do is move Jalen Stroman into the boundary where Adon starts, and then put Tay at the field. That's what I think they're going to do. And we saw that, at times on Saturday. So that's what I would do with them. And then let Jalen come down and be that downhill player, and then Tay can kind of roam and rob and do some things like that. That's what I think they're going to do. And if they do that, I think Tay could have a big game. And I think Tay could benefit from some of if the pass rush is there, with Bubakar, with Kingston, with Bryce Young, with Drake Bowen, then I think that, Jared Dawson, I wanted to go with the D tackle this week, but honestly, the D tackles aren't getting a ton of pass rush, but I think they've been doing a pretty good job, good against the run so far.
Agreed.
But I want to see Tay. I think Tay could really benefit from the front seven being real aggressive and active and shutting them down. So that's where I'm going with him. Ask the same question. Who's one defensive player that we don't talk a lot about that you could see being a game record in this game?
Donovan Heinisch.
Okay.
Yeah. I know we just talked about the interior defensive line, but look, this is a game. It's kind of giving me shades of Florida State from last year. Struggling offensive line. They're willing to protect the passer. Notre Dame has struggled to generate a pass rush. And I think that this might be a game where they let Donovan Heinisch be the interior impactful pass rusher that he can be up the middle. And I don't think they're going to ask him to go nose up on, I guess it helps that they don't have an Inez Cooper and Armaj Reed-Adams on their offensive line. But I think they're going to send him on long stunts. I think they're going to ask him to slant quite a bit. I think that this is a game where Donovan Heinisch can really, really wreak some havoc on Ryan Brown's comfortability in the pocket. So I'm going Donnie Heinisch.
I'm going to go up front as well. I'm going to go Jordan Botelho. He's mine for this game. We're not talking a lot about Jordan. We talk about Bubakar, Kingston, Bryce, Burnham. I think this is a game where Jordan could kind of start getting his feet underneath him and do some things in this game. So
it'd be poetic too. This is a game he got hurt in last year. That'd be awesome.
That was part of it.
I like that a lot.
Just real quick, address this. James Salumi, thank you so much for the super chat, James. Is it play calling or is Great House just not getting open? It has nothing to do with him not getting open. It's also not as just simple as it's play calling. I don't think they're doing anything to design things for him. I think it's fair to admit that. Like, they're not doing a whole lot of things where he's the primary weapon, but they did design a pass play where the design of the play told me that they wanted to get Jaden Greathouse open for a touchdown. I mean, that's what the design of the play was on that play that he threw the ball in the end zone to Malachi. So it's not like they're not doing anything to get him the football. I just don't think they're doing enough. And that's what I want to see. I mean, Jaden Greathouse being targeted. What do you say? Like, I'm down 5 times because the tip ball in the opener was also to him, and I don't know that PFF counted that. So I have him down as being targeted 5 times so far this season.
With the tip ball that got intercepted?
No. The one that just got bad at the line of scrimmage.
Oh,
they were running double slants, and you look at it, I think CJ was targeting Jaden Greathouse on that play for a slant, and it got batted. It just kind of flew up and just went down. It was against Miami. It's against Miami in the opener. And so I think it was first half of the game, but they were going left to right on the TP screen. But anyway, I think it's it's not about him not getting open. I don't think that he's been a primary read a whole lot in games, and I don't think that they're doing enough to have him be a focal point.
Yeah,
that's kind of where I'm at.
Well, good deal. Well, listen, folks, that's going to do it for part 3 of today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast. But don't go anywhere. We're going to wrap up today's show by talking about some of the other games going on across the country. But before we get there, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Also, make sure you subscribe to the CFB Nation channel. Having some good content coming out on that channel throughout the course of the football season. So make sure you're subscribed there. Whatever streaming platform you listen to us on, we'd greatly appreciate a 5-star review. But as always, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. All right, Brian, to wrap up today's show here on the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by FanDuel, we're going to be talking college football, big picture, and some of the games going on across the country. And there's some good slates. This is a good weekend slate of games. Some of it doesn't have, Alabama, Georgia that's going to be happening next week, but there's some really good games going on across college football. And one of the games that we're going to start out talking about is number 17 Texas Tech on the road against number 16 Utah. Like we predicted, the Big 12 is wide open right now. I had Kansas State versus Arizona State in my Big 12 conference championship game. Kansas State is completely fallen off and not really sure what's going on out there right now. And then Arizona State, they're no longer ranked because they lost to Mississippi State on the road. So this is a pretty interesting Big 12 matchup between these two, Brian. Little particulars in the game here real quick. 12 p.m. kickoff Eastern time on Fox. And right now, the over-under on FanDuel is set at 58.5, and Utah is favored by 2.5 points. So I thought that was interesting. This is going to be a fun matchup, Brian, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Trev, it is, we went into the season not sure of who was going to be the teams to beat in the Big 12, and, Texas Tech got a ton of love coming into the season, and they've played kind of 3 cupcakes so far. They blew out Arkansas, Pine Bluff. They played Kent State, who's pretty bad. And they blew out Oregon State, who also is pretty bad. And you're like, well, I don't know that we really know a whole lot about Texas Tech yet. But at the same time, you can't ignore the fact that they did to those teams what a good football team is supposed to do to those teams. They absolutely destroyed those teams. I mean, they were beating Kent State. I think it was 48-0 at halftime. Let me go look up the box score. It was 48-0 at halftime. They won 62-14. Both teams scored 14 points in the second half. You know what I mean? Like if that was Kurt Signetti, they'd have hung 90 if they had 48 at halftime. You know, he'd have run it up. They'd have run it up. But the Texas Tech didn't do that. Oregon State, again, 28-0 at halftime. Oregon State didn't score until the fourth quarter of the game. And so when you look at this, the thing that's been interesting about this Texas Tech defense is I don't know that the Texas Tech starting defense has given up a point all year, Trev. So Arkansas, Pine Bluff, they have one of the craziest statistics I've seen. They've only given up 1 touchdown in the first 3 quarters of the games so far, Texas Tech. So they gave up, I'm serious, look at this. They gave up 7 points against Arkansas Pine Bluff, and Arkansas Pine Bluff in that game scored in the fourth quarter on a 12-play, 75-yard drive in the fourth quarter. 6:16 left in the game. They beat Kent State the next week, 62-14. Kent State scored both of their touchdowns in the fourth quarter. They scored with 12-11 in the fourth quarter and then 10-20 in the fourth quarter, back-to-back plays or back-to-back series. That was on the backup defense. And then they beat Oregon State 45-14, but it was 38-0 going into the fourth quarter. Oregon State scored with 5:05 left in the game and 1:53 left in the game. It was 45-0 when Oregon State finally scored. I don't think the Texas Tech defense has given up a touchdown all year. Maybe 1 touchdown to Kent State, maybe, depending on how many stars are out there. That's an amazing statistic. I don't care how bad the teams you're playing is. So, the part of the excitement people had about Texas Tech coming in the season was all the transfers they got on defense, especially the defensive line. And so far, they look the part, man. They absolutely look the part. They're moving the ball. They're an impressive looking team so far. I don't know how much they've been challenged. That's my big fear with them. But dude, they're doing what good teams are supposed to do. And their quarterback is playing really good football. He's thrown for over 300 yards a game. He's got 11 touchdowns and 1 pick so far this season. they're still running the ball. That was a big concern I had too, because they lost their running back from last year. Forget his Taj Brooks. I wanted to say Tajay Sharp, but that's a kid from UMass back in the day. Taj Brooks goes to the NFL. They lose him, and then they bring in the kid from USC, Quentin Joyner, and he tears his, I think in fall camp. I think it's like during fall camp, tears his ACL. He's out. You're like, are they going to be able to run the ball? Well, again, through 3 games against bad opponents, they've run the ball extremely well so far. They ran for 294 against Arkansas Pine Bluff, 230 against Kent State, but they only ran for 121 yards on 40 carries against Oregon State. First time they played anyone of somewhat comparable size and ability. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to be able to run the ball against Utah in this game, Trev. That's going to be a big part of this game. I think if they're just going to sit back and have Baron Morton throw the ball all over the field, I think Utah is going to be able to do some things to get pressure on them and shut them down. And that's going to be a key matchup, because on the flip side, Utah's run defense this year has been super salty. They held UCLA to 84, Cal Poly to 65, and Wyoming to 121. And their offense has been pretty good so far this season as well, Trev. And they're a fun team to watch. A very dynamic quarterback. Utah's averaging over 500 yards of offense per game. Their lowest output of yards was 492 against UCLA. You watched that game. They called off the dogs in the fourth quarter. They could have hung 2-3 more touchdowns on UCLA if they wanted to. They really could have. So just on film, these have been easily the 2 most impressive teams in the Big 12 so far, along with, I think you can make a case that TCU's been pretty good so far as well. I think those 3 teams, just off the top of my head, have been the most impressive that we've seen so far this season. But this is also going to be the first time either one of these teams is playing anyone even remotely on their level. So I honestly can't wait for this game. I'm going with Utah in this game. Trev, did you give a score prediction?
Not yet, no,
okay.
but I'm going with Utah as well. Home field advantage.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I'm going Utah 34, Texas Tech 31. I do think offenses are going to kind of make enough plays and big plays, but I think Utah is going to force more turnovers. And I just think Devin Dampier's run-throw ability is just going to be too much. But I think this is going to be a heck of a game. Look, I don't want to say I'm completely bought into Texas Tech, because I was very hesitant to buy into the hype about Texas Tech. And they haven't played anybody yet, so I'm not completely bought in yet. But I think they're going to battle Utah, and we're going to come out of this game saying, yep, those are 2 really good football teams. And then the Big 12 those 2 teams are going to have a big say in who's going to win the Big 12 this year.
Agreed. I agree completely. I mean, this is an interesting game. I mean, like we've talked about before, the line was set at 2.5. Utah's the home team. Typically teams get about a 3-point spot, and so it's like Vegas is kind of viewing this as a pick'em game. I think that's going to be interesting. I think it's also going to come down to Devin Dampier's legs. I think that's another fascinating aspect to this game. Can he go be the playmaker that we think? Look, right now on FanDuel, his over-under for rushing yards is set at 66.5. That is hefty, even for a mobile quarterback like Devin Dampier, especially considering that sack yardage goes against rushing yards for quarterbacks in college.
That's right.
That makes me really nervous, especially considering Texas Tech is the number 17 team in the country in sacks per game. So you add all that together, I think it's going to come down to how much of a playmaker Devin Dampier is going to be. But this should be a really fun one. I'm with you. The next game, Brian, I guess going in order here of time when they kick off. Number 21, Michigan, is on the road against Nebraska. That game kicks off at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on CBS. Right now, Michigan is favored on the road by 2.5 points, and the over-under is set at 44.5 on FanDuel. This one's really interesting as well, Brian.
It is. I mean, it's kind of what are we going to learn about these 2 football teams kind of game? Like Michigan last week, they got beat by Oklahoma. Not last week, but 2 weeks ago. They got beat by Oklahoma, 24-13. What we learned about that Michigan team is their offense still lacks playmakers. I mean, their only touchdown was 1 long touchdown run by Justice Haynes. They couldn't consistently move the ball. They had a couple drives where maybe they had a chance to do something and couldn't do anything with it. But what we also learned about Michigan is their defense is still really good. And you're going against a Nebraska team that Trev, I don't know what they are yet. They had a very ugly win over Cincinnati. I shouldn't say ugly, sloppy win over Cincinnati. It wasn't an ugly win because this is the kind of game that Nebraska would lose in the past. they would let Cincinnati go down there and score late in the game, tie it up or send it to overtime. And they made the plays they needed to do to win the game. That's not something they've done in the past. So kudos to them. And then the next two games, they came out and just destroyed two not very good football teams. You know, they blow out Akron 68-0. They blow out Houston Christian 59-7. Those are pretty awful football teams. I feel like Michigan's going to come into this game a little bit more tested. And you know, because obviously they had to play Oklahoma. They had a great bounce back win last week where they just ran all over, just ran roughshod over Central Michigan. And you're starting to see Bryce Underwood getting more and more comfortable. You know, and that's what you expect to see. The more he plays, the more comfortable he's going to get. And they also turned his legs loose a little bit against Central Michigan. I'm curious if they're going to do that against Nebraska. I think they're going to need to. And my other question is, was that a Biff Poggi thing? Because when Sharon Moore's been on the sideline, they've seemed very hesitant to let him run. But when Sharon Moore's sitting at home, it could also just, you know, because you can't say, well, it's because it was a bigger game because they didn't really let Bryce Underwood run a lot against Oklahoma. Like, is that kind of like, hey, this is what we need to do?
Yeah, I got some theories around why Sharon Moore wasn't really willing to let him run versus the interim head coach.
Okay.
I think that's because Sharon Moore has an idea of the numerical value of what they paid for Bryce Underwood and not the interim head coach.
Sure.
That's where I'm going.
There's an awareness, but he doesn't have to care about that. I'm not the head coach.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
but I think you're paying that kind of money to win. And look, Bryce Underwood is a pocket passer who's athletic. He is a drop back quarterback, but he's also a very athletic guy. And so I'm not going to go out there and I'm not going to use Bryce Underwood the way that Notre Dame used Riley Leonard.
No,
that's not his game. But I do think you have to do more things to allow him to use his athleticism as a passer and as a runner. And I think we saw more of that this past week. There was a play where I'm trying to remember what it was, but I think they kind of ran like a bootleg and nothing was there. And he just kept on going. And, you know, I want to see more of that kind of stuff because you got to be careful. He's still a freshman. You don't want to get him beat up, but I think you got to be more one to, hey, dude, if it's not there, go do something. So look, it's two high level talented quarterbacks going at each other. Trev, I think this is an interesting game. This is a huge game for Nebraska. This is the chance. So this is what, year 4 for Matt Rule, or is it year 3? This is year 3 for Matt Rule. Year 3 for Matt Rule. In his first year, they beat, Northern Illinois, Louisiana Tech, Illinois, Northwestern, and Purdue. No big wins. Last year, they beat UTEP, Colorado, Northern Illinois, Purdue, Rutgers, Wisconsin, and Boston College in a bowl game. No big wins. Right now, you don't have any big wins. You're in year 3. If you are truly turning the corner as a program, you've got to win a game like this at home. I expect it to be a battle. I expect it to be a 4-quarter game. I think this is a quality Michigan football team. I think it's a quality Nebraska football team. But if you're going to turn the program around, this has to be a game that you win. You're at home. You know, your team is rested. You've basically been able to play your backups a bunch the last 2 games. This is why you went out and spent all that money in the portal to get Dane Key, get the receivers, get Rocco Spindler, get the offensive lineman Pritchett from Alabama. This is why you went and spent all that money. This is the kind of game you have to win, Trev. You have to win. The question is, will they? And I think for Michigan, it's like, okay, you battled against Oklahoma. Can you go on the road? I fully expect Michigan to battle against Nebraska. I don't think this is a game where Nebraska blows them out. I just don't think that's going to be the case if they win. But you got to show me that you can win away from home, because you got this game on the road, you got USC on the road, you got Michigan State on the road coming up here over the next month and a half. And then you're on the road against Northwestern and Maryland. Those should both be wins. Although Maryland's looked solid so far. That young quarterback's big. I'll tell you this, Big Ten quarterback plays a lot better this year than it was last year. A lot better, in my opinion. And if Billy Edwards didn't get hurt at Wisconsin, it'd be even better. Now, again, he was at Maryland last year, so he was still in the Big Ten. But the point is, Maryland's got a pretty good quarterback. Wisconsin doesn't. And it was kind of the case last year if you liked Billy Edwards, if you thought he was that guy. But, I mean, look, I think that the kid, Aiden Childs in Michigan State's doing pretty good. Obviously, Julian Sands taking over there. You've got Bryce Underwood at Michigan is certainly an upgrade over what they had last year. I love Drake Lindsey at Minnesota. You all know that. I've been talking about him since the summer. I mean, you just kind of Dante Moore. He's doing his thing. Fernando Mendoza so far in Indiana. We'll talk about him a little bit. It's been everything we thought he was going to be against inferior opponents. Like Big Ten quarterback plays got better this year than it was. And this is a matchup of two talented young players. And let's see kind of what they can do. And I'm looking forward to it. To be honest with you, I'm very much looking forward to it. So that's the matchup, Trev. Big game. Who do you got?
Give me the Cornhuskers.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is this your heart or is this your I hate Michigan pick?
Yes. I mean, look, at the end of it, legitimately though, I still have questions around Michigan's secondary. And I wasn't impressed the first time that they went on the road against Oklahoma. Bryce Underwood, you got to have him go with his legs. Look, right now FanDuel has his over-under rushing yards set at 40.5. I don't know if he gets there. And I was not impressed with his performance as a passer on the road against Oklahoma. He finished the game 9-24.
Mm-hmm.
I look in the other sideline. Dylan Raiola has another year of development under him. He impressed me as a passer on the road against Cincinnati. And then I also like their receiving core. Between Dane Key and Isaiah Hunter, Ja'Cory Barney's over-under is set at 39.5.
Yeah.
So I think the home field advantage is going to play a factor here. And I think there's going to be a little chip on their shoulder. I've watched some videos of Matt Rule getting his guys ready to go out and fire them up. I think he's going to be able to play the fact that they're underdogs at home to a team in Michigan that is just, for all intents and purposes, not what people thought that they were going to be. Me and Ange on the same page. What up?
Like Trev, there's a show that I like to watch. Ange and I were actually talking about starting to watch it again because there's been a couple new seasons out since we've watched it. But it's a show called The Chosen, and it's about the life of Jesus and the apostles. And there's this scene where they're portraying Jesus when he was a kid at the temple, and his mom's like, not now. And he's like, if not now, when? And then there's another scene later where Jesus turns water into wine, where his mom says to him, if not now, when? Like that scene, those two scenes keep popping in my head when I keep thinking about Nebraska. If not now, if you can't beat this Michigan team at home with this squad that you paid for, when? When's it going to happen? That's where I'm at. I'm going 24-21 Nebraska. I'm with you. I think that the Cincinnati game is important for them. I think they're going to do some things to try to confuse Bryce Underwood. I just don't know that against a quality defense, and this is a quality defense in Nebraska. It's not an elite defense. It's a quality defense. Can they do enough? Can they ride their run game against Nebraska? And, look, my nerves, the nervousness I have about it is I did watch Cincinnati kind of run a little bit on them, but some of the yards, Cincinnati went for 202 yards, but if you watch that game, Trev, a kind of a decent amount of those yards were the quarterback scrambling, especially late in the game, but their starting running back rushed for 108 yards that game, but he only averaged, 4.3 yards a carry. If you watch the game, their quarterback was doing some scrambling and running around a little bit in that game as well. So actually, no, I'm sorry. That was the Nebraska running back. I was trying to see the Cincinnati running back. So let me correct that. But So the running back for the starting running back for them, he had 7 carries for 53 yards, had one good run, but their starting quarterback had 96 yards on 13 carries. And a decent amount of that was, as we talked about, scrambles. And there was one scramble he had late in the game on the final drive that kind of padded their numbers a little bit. But I did think they gashed Nebraska a couple times. Walker had one nice big run. That kind of concerns me a little bit. But then I also say, but it was the opener. But we haven't seen a game against a legit team that's been able to challenge them in that regard since then. I think Michigan's going to run the ball okay. But I said, what I say, 24-21, 24-20 is what I meant to see, because I see 2 touchdowns and 2 field goals. So I think there's going to be some moving of the ball for Michigan. They're going to run it okay. I still don't love their receiving core, and I still think you're asking a lot of a freshman quarterback. So this is your moment, Nebraska. Do something with it. And if, like you said, if they can't win this game, Trev, then it's just you gotta start to wonder, is he going to get it done at Nebraska? This is the kind of game you got to win. This is it's not vulnerable. This is a beatable Michigan team.
Yeah.
It's a beatable Michigan team. And if you can't beat them, you still got Michigan State on your schedule. You still got at Minnesota. You still got USC. You still got Penn State. You still got Iowa. If you can't win this game, you're in trouble. If you win this game, I'm going to say, okay, Nebraska's got a chance to be in that battle for who's going to be 3, 4, and 5 in the Big Ten. I think this is a must-win game for them. Must-win game.
Agreed. My final score prediction 17-14.
Okay, so we see it similarly.
Yeah. Yep. I think this is just going to be one of those like old school Big Ten, like grind it out. Who can establish the ground game? I think I mean, what is that? 24 total points scored in this game. I could see 17 of them scored in like the first quarter. And then it's just a slugfest the rest of the way. But I do think how the game ends, I think that Nebraska's going to try to run out the clock. Michigan's going to get the ball back with enough time to put together like a game-tying drive to try to force overtime. And to your point, Brian, I think that's just a lot of weight to put on your true freshman quarterback with a very subpar receiving core. I guess kind of outside of Samaj Morgan to a degree. So I like Nebraska in this one. I'm with you. Last game that we're going to talk about, Brian. We got number 9, Illinois, traveling to Bloomington, Indiana, to take on, I believe they're the 19th ranked Indiana Hoosiers. 13th ranked Indiana Hoosiers.
9 versus 13. Yeah.
7:30 p.m. kickoff on NBC. Indiana at home, playing their 4th consecutive home game. They are 6.5-point favorites. The over-under is set at 52.5 on FanDuel, Brian. This one is going to be interesting. Definitely interesting.
It is going to be very interesting, Trevor. I can't wait for this game. I cannot believe that I am saying I cannot wait to watch Illinois and Indiana. Can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth, but that's where we are. And not for any, like, I want to see this guy get put in his place. Look, I don't like Kursignetti. I don't. But the guy's a good football coach. And he's recruited well to Indiana. Like, this is a good football team at Indiana. There's no doubt. But it's more so because these are 2 really good football teams, in my opinion. And I think Illinois showed themselves when they went to Duke. Duke's not a great team. We talked about that during the offseason. Their 9 wins last year was a little bit of smoke and mirrors. And we're seeing that with Duke so far this year. They're 1-2. They just lost by a touchdown at Tulane last week, and Tulane was clearly the better team. But that's still, you went on the road and you beat a Power 5 team on the road who's going to have a shot for a bowl game this year and hung 45 on them and put them away in the 4th quarter. And then they bounced back last week and they played who's it? Was it? I always get the Michigan. That's right, because Michigan played Central, so it would have been Western Michigan last week and took it to them. And so, you had that kind of, how are you going to perform? And they had a typical sluggish start against that, but then the second half they went out there and put the game away and really buried them. So I like this Illinois team. I still think that their offensive line could stand to be a little bit more physical. But I like this team. And then Indiana has just been rolling teams. The problem with Indiana is they haven't played anybody. The only decent team they played so far is Old Dominion. And I'm kind of laughing at them like, dude, you struggle to beat Indiana. Well, that win looks a little different now because I just watched Old Dominion go into Blacksburg and dominate Virginia Tech at on Lane Stadium. Got their coach fired. I mean, bro. It wasn't like they pulled away late. I mean, Old Dominion dominated that game it was 28-0 at halftime. I mean, it was 31-0 before Virginia Tech finally scored. I mean, it was a butt whooping. Final score is 45-26, and Virginia Tech had the last 2 touchdowns of the game. So like that 27-13 win over Old Dominion looks a little bit different to me now than it did at the time. You know what I mean? Like, and so it's like, okay, hey, that kind of changes the perspective a little bit. But I look at this Indiana team and I say, I still don't know if we know how good they are because they just haven't really played anybody, if we're being honest. But I think they're a dangerous team. I think they're an athletic receiving core. I think Fernando Mendoza is a good football player. Their offensive line has been solid so far. Their defense has been good so far. I got to say, having watched them, Trev, I haven't been completely blown away with their defense. I think it has more to do with the fact that he's not playing anybody. They held Indiana State to 77 yards. I don't care. Indiana State's a terrible FCS football team. So this is going to be their first test. But can Luke Altmaier win a game where it's not 17-14 or 20-17? That's the other question. So there's so many aspects of this. I think I think Brett Bielema needs this game more than Kurt Cignetti does. I really do. That sounds crazy because Indiana's at home, but I just feel like this is the kind of game that could really solidify Brett Bielema's program. If they lose in a close game, they're fine. But I think this is the kind of win that could really show that Illinois is a player. But I also think that for Indiana, this is the kind of statement game that you can make. You've got a top 25 team and like, you know, it's going to be interesting. You know what I mean? Like, this is a top 15 team. I think Illinois is viewed as a legitimately good football team. They're top 10. If you win this game, they're going to fall out of the top 10, but they're going to keep winning, in my opinion, Illinois. This is a chance for Indiana to make a statement, but I just feel like Illinois needs this one even more. That may not make sense, but that's just kind of how I feel about it.
I think it's interesting when you look at it. I think you could make the argument that both, I agree with your stance on Brett Bielema, but you could make the argument that both teams really, really need this. Indiana is the 19th ranked team in the country. And I think this is what they need to help propel themselves forward by beating a top 10 opponent in Illinois. I think that could be really interesting because, you know, Kurt Cignetti, he came onto the scene and was, you know, I beat the you-know-what at a ranked teams. And it's like, well, so far since you've been at Indiana, you haven't. Now, mind you, the two ranked teams that, you know, Kurt Cignetti lost to last year in Indiana were the two teams that ended up playing in the national championship game. So this is your first real opportunity to play a team that is ranked in the top 25 that you do have a very good legitimate shot at beating. I think that's going to be interesting. I do actually have Indiana winning this game. Final score prediction is 31-20 Indiana, but it's going to look a lot closer than what the final score indicates.
Well, did you say 31-28?
31-20.
31-20, and you have Indiana winning 31-20?
I do, but I think they're going to be up 24-20, and then Indiana's going to get the ball last in typical Cignetti fashion. He's going to drive right down the field and put another point on the board, even though they could just run out the clock. To say we beat a top 10 team by double digits, it's going to be one of those type of things. So, but I do have Indiana winning this one. They have impressed me this year, and I know it's one of those where they haven't played anybody, but this offense looks legit, man. Fernando Mendoza's, you know, he is who we thought he was, and Omar Cooper Jr., that dude's a baller. They haven't needed Elijah Surratt to really ball out. I mean, I know it was Indiana State, but Omar Cooper Jr. was targeted 10 times and had 10 catches. I mean, that's good. That's pretty decent.
I don't care how bad the team is that you're playing. When you go 10 for 10 on targets, you're a pretty good football player.
Yeah.
And we said before the season that we thought the receiving core is going to be even better this year because of his emergence, because he's now a veteran player and Surratt was coming back. Like, that's a legit receiving core. I'd like to see him. I'd like to just see him kind of be tested. And I don't think they've been tested. I mean, like I said, the only decent team they played was Old Dominion, and they went 18 of 32 for 193 yards, 6 yards an attempt, no touchdowns, no picks. Like, all their productions come against Kennesaw State and Indiana State. Kennesaw State is 1-3. The only team they beat was Merrimack, who I believe is a D2 team. They even lost to Wake Forest, who's pretty terrible. But yeah, so I do have Indiana winning also. I think it'll be 27-24. I don't know that Illinois has quite enough firepower to make the plays at the end of the game to win it.
Yep.
That's my big question mark. I mean, Duke kind of shot themselves in the foot a little bit. I just think when I look at these teams, I think I like the Illinois defense a little bit more than the Indiana defense right now. I just think that the Indiana offense just has a different gear to it that I don't know that Illinois has. And since it is at Indiana, I mean, honestly, this is going to be my score prediction no matter what, no matter where the game was being played. If it was at Illinois, I'd take Illinois 27-24. With it being at Indiana or on a neutral field, I'm taking Indiana. I just think they have a little bit too much firepower. The key for Illinois is going to be if you can get to Fernando Mendoza, don't let him get comfortable. Don't let him set his feet. Don't let him go through his progressions. Get it, because I think you can get him into some big game-changing mistakes if you can rattle him a little bit and pressure him a little bit. Yeah. That's going to mean shut the run game down, get some pressure on him, don't let him get comfortable. That's going to be the key for Illinois. If they can't do that, then I don't think they have enough firepower offensively to win. The key for Illinois is going to be on the road against a legitimately a good top 15 team is going to be, and I think the ranking should be reversed, by the way. I think Indiana should be 9 and Illinois should be 13, but that's a different conversation for a different day.
Indiana's 19th.
9? They're 19th?
Indiana's 19th.
Are you serious? I thought they were 13th. That's even dumber. This is a playoff team from last year. I thought they were 13th. I wrote down 13. That's even dumber. They should be the top 10 team. Yeah. They're the team that has a lot back from a team that went to the playoffs last year. So that's just dumb. But I just think Indiana's, if they can't get to, if the only way Illinois can win, in my opinion, is if they can get some short fields for their offense based off turnovers and special teams plays. That's going to be the key. If they can't, then I just think it's too much to ask these guys to shut down Surratt and Cooper and the running backs for 60 minutes. I just don't think they're going to be able to do it.
I'm with you.
That's why I got the Hoosiers winning 27-24.
I like it. Brian, I know there's a couple of other games that we're keeping our eye on for this weekend. What you got your eye on?
I have a long list of other games that I like, Trev, and I'll bring up one. You bring up one. We can just kind of go back and forth on these a little bit. We obviously talked about Texas Tech and Utah, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, and Nebraska. But there's a lot of other games we talked about, and one of them is Oklahoma and Auburn. I think Oklahoma kind of showed that, hey, they're a better football team than they were last year with that win over Michigan. It was a gritty win. It was a game where even though the score was lower, you never felt like Michigan had a shot to win that game. You just felt like the Oklahoma team was the better team the whole game. Their defense is really good, Trev. I mean, it's Brent Venables calling the defense. I mean, it's, hey, a former really talented defensive coordinator taking over play calling for his defense, and they get better. That's who knew? That's worked out pretty well for them. They beat Temple 42-3 this past week. That may not seem like a whole lot, but Temple was 2-0, and they blew out UMass and blew out Howard coming into that game. So that's a very quality win. They didn't have any kind of like, hey, we're not going to care about this game. We're just worried about next week. We're feeling good about ourselves because we just went and beat Michigan. They jumped on them pretty quick. It was 28-0 at halftime. It was 42-3 at the end of the third quarter. So they handled business. What was weird about it is they played in Philly, which I was surprised by. But I like this Oklahoma team. I think this is the Auburn so far this year has been good. I don't know that I am completely sold on Auburn just yet. I think the Baylor win was a heck of a win, but as I talked to you during the game, I felt Baylor blew a lot of chances to really kind of run over Auburn in that game. But Auburn battled. Their defense, their front seven has been very good so far. Their running game has been pretty good so far. At the end of the day, though, Trev, I just still don't have a lot of faith in Jackson Arnold. That's really what it comes down to for me. Like, their run game is legit. They're running the football well. Jeremiah Cobb's, very good running back. We talked about him before the season. He's a very good player. I had him as the top 100 player coming out. Jackson Arnold's been a pretty good runner for them so far. I just, against Baylor, he was at 6.4 yards per attempt. Against South Alabama, he was at 5.9 yards per attempt. I just don't think he can throw a football. And I don't know that you can run all over Oklahoma the way that you did your other two opponents. So, but this is the game to kind of prove it. This is a big statement game for both of these teams, but I really like Oklahoma in this game, but I'll be keeping my eye on this one as well.
No, I love that. I think this game comes down to, is Jackson Arnold going to be able to beat Oklahoma through the air? Is Oklahoma secondary more of the secondary that held Bryce Young to 9-24? Because going up against Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton looks a heck of a lot different than going up against Samaj Morgan and whoever the heck else they have in their receiving corps.
Yeah.
Michigan. So I think it's going to come down to that. That one's going to be interesting.
I did read that Singleton's questionable, but usually when a guy's questionable, he still plays. Yeah. What's crazy is if Auburn had a quarterback that could throw, they have a very good receiving corps.
Yeah, they do.
Their tight ends aren't bad either. I mean, they just don't have a core. It's really just comes. How do you go for 6 yards a carry? It was less than that. How do you go for 5.9 yards per pass attempt? How do you go 13 of 24 for 142 yards, 5.9 yards per attempt against South Alabama when you've got Cam Coleman and Sam Eric Singleton? Like, how does that happen?
No idea.
How does that happen? Like they went for fewer yards and yards per attempt than Morgan State and Tulane did against South Alabama. They also had the lowest by over 5%. They had also had the lowest completion percentage against South Alabama than either Morgan State or Tulane did. Like, he just can't throw. He's just not a natural. He's a very good athlete, but he's just not a natural. Just not a natural.
One of the games that I'm keeping my eye on is the Syracuse at Clemson game. Noon kickoff on ESPN. Right now, Clemson is favored by 17.5. I'm not going to lie to you. That is a pretty hefty 17.5 point favorite, considering they just lost to Georgia Tech on the road. Look, at the end of the day, I talked about this in the spread option last night. My dog of the week is Syracuse at plus 17.5. I really like those numbers.
Yeah.
Look, at the end of the day, this isn't the Clemson team that we have gotten to know over, from 2013 to 2020. They lost their home opener in ugly fashion to LSU in a game where they scored 10 points. They only scored 27 points and needed a 17-point third quarter to beat Troy by 9 at home, and lost to Georgia Tech on the road. Then on the other sideline, look, it blows my mind that with that quarterback, the experience at offensive line, that wide receiving core, it's an offense that has yet to score over 30 points.
I don't care that Antonio Williams has been hurt.
I don't either.
That shouldn't matter.
Crazy. And
that
then
shouldn't matter.
On the other sideline, Steve Angeli currently leads the country right now in passing yards, and Syracuse is the number 33 team in the country in points per game. I don't know if Syracuse wins this one, because I do think it comes down at the end of the day. Do they have just the natural horses to compete with Clemson? Because the two teams that beat Clemson did, in my opinion. I've been high on Georgia Tech since the summer, and LSU.
Yeah,
obviously
a playoff team, don't you?
Yeah, Georgia Tech, yes, sir.
No.
I was high on Georgia Tech. I'm higher than what some people were on LSU in the summer. Those were the two teams that beat Clemson. Those are the two teams that, when you look at their rosters compared to the rest of Clemson's schedule, it's like, okay, they kind of match up pretty well. I think Syracuse gives them a run for their money. I don't think that they win, but again, this isn't the Clemson team of old that we're used to seeing. So I like Syracuse to cover in this one.
I'm back and forth on this one because you're correct in everything you just said about the matchup. The problem is this isn't UConn and Colgate. And
sure.
and the concern I have is not even about Steve Angeli. The concern I have is more related to the offensive line. UConn gave up 27 points to Syracuse last week or 2 weeks ago in a loss. Syracuse came back and won. Syracuse was losing the majority of that game. A week later, they gave up 512 yards, 6.5 yards per play, and 44 points to Delaware. Like, UConn's defense is not very good right now. And honestly, Syracuse struggled to protect the quarterback. The D-line has not been elite for Clemson, but it's still been pretty good. And they've gotten decent pressure on Haynes King last week. I thought they knocked him around a little bit. I have a bad feeling that Steve Angeli's not going to have a whole lot of time to throw in this game. If he gets time to throw, I think they can do work on Clemson, because the one thing I said about Clemson, I thought Clemson was going to be better than they are, but the one concern I have, if you remember, about that defense was I don't love that secondary outside of Terrell, and that's proven to be true. Ronan Hannafin's been a dude, but he's more of a dude coming down and playing the run, playing the alleys. He's not like an elite cover guy, but I just don't know that he's going to have a lot of time to throw. And I'm not in love with the Syracuse defense either. So the covering thing, I'm with you on, Trev. I think Clemson wins this game, and I think you said so as well. It's the covering thing. It's just the reason that I have a hard time. It's not that I think Clemson's offense is going to wake up. I think this is who they are. This is who they were against every decent team they played last year. It's just kind of who they are. But I could see them getting like 3 or 4 short fields because of a couple picks and a strip sack, and like Steve Angeli drops back the pass, he starts to throw, and some guy comes untouched behind him and knocks the ball out. Just, you know what I mean? Like, or he steps into the pocket and somebody drills him. Like, that's a bad offensive line he's playing behind. And so the reason I think they do cover is because I do think they're going to force them into some short fields, and their offenses should be able to score. But I won't be shocked if you're correct on that one. It's going to be a very interesting game. I think we can officially say after last week, the dynasty of Clemson is over. And knowing Dabo, he'll probably make me look stupid for saying that, but this just isn't Clemson. This isn't the same Clemson. They are what they are. You'd think after losing to LSU, they'd come out, Troy, you could say, okay, look, man, they had the hangover from last week, blah, 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 blah. And this is where we're at. But they did the same thing against Georgia Tech. And they battled. They fight. They're just it's a very dull offense. It's a very slow offense and how they pace. It's a defense that just doesn't have the elite athletes that they used to have. It's just this isn't the same Clemson team. But I think that defense could potentially eat that front for Syracuse alive, that offensive line for Syracuse. And they can't run the ball at all. At all. So another game, Trev, that I'm looking at here is like I said, there's a lot of different games that I'm interested in this weekend. Arkansas, Tulane and Ole Miss is a very interesting game for me. Tulane has looked really good so far this year. Everybody's talking about South Florida and how good South Florida is, and that's legit. But this is a team that beat Northwestern by 20. They just beat Duke last week by a touchdown, and it wasn't that close. I mean, if you watch the game, they beat Duke by a touchdown. I'm going to pull up the box score because I'm pretty sure Duke scored a lot late. Yes, it was 24-9 at halftime. Duke scored to make it 24-16 early in the third quarter, and then Tulane scored 10 straight to go up 34-16 before Duke scored 11 in the fourth quarter, including a field goal with a minute left to make it a touchdown game. Tulane dominated that football game. They controlled that football game. And Ole Miss is, they're winning. Like they're winning, Trev, but they're not blowing me away right now. I was impressed by their Kentucky win because I thought they were gritty in that game. They battled, but their defense has been a bit of a problem for me. They're not a great defense right now, in my opinion. And I think that Tulane can move on them. I think ultimately Tulane doesn't have enough firepower to beat Ole Miss, but I'm very curious to see if Ole Miss can kind of have the wake up moment. But this is a huge opportunity for Tulane to earn a big win. I don't think they're going to get it, but they played Ole Miss a couple of years ago and battled them. It was a competitive game for a while. And they did that without their quarterback. If you remember, oh gosh, what's his name? I'm drawing a complete blank on their quarterback's name, but he missed that game for Tulane and they battled. But I'm curious to see if they can pull off one. And then kind of the same conference, the Arkansas-Memphis game is another one that I'm very much looking forward to. More of a Notre Dame flavor, but I'm looking forward to that one as well.
Yeah, no, those are going to be good. I mean, the last one that I'm keeping my eye on, a lot of the ones similar to you, but I'm going to keep my eye on SMU at TCU. That game's fun. That game, if you like kind of exciting quarterback play, that could be one that you want to keep your eye on. I mean, look, man, at the end of the day, you got Kevin Jennings versus Josh Hoover, and you could watch some really exciting quarterback play, man. Really exciting. Now, one of the things I will say, I'm staying away from the over-under on FanDuel for that game because it's set at like 64.5.
I can't believe that.
I
don't get that one, Trevor. I don't get that one at all.
Not touching it.
Like, explain that one to me. Explain that one to me. Why? Because SMU is averaging 38.3 points per game. They scored 42. In their only loss, they scored 45. TCU's averaging 45 points a game. They scored 48 at North Carolina. And they both could score last year because a lot of these odds are still kind of a lot influenced by last year.
Yeah.
Like Ryan Brown's, FanDuel number for passing. It's like, this isn't last year's Purdue team, and this isn't last year's Notre Dame second, defense either. But that's a lower number. I think that is it. And so far, against 2 games, TCU's only played 2 games, but they are kind of what I thought they were going to be this year, Trev, which is improved on defense, but a team that's going to go out there and score. And Josh Hoover versus Kevin Jennings, dude, I cannot wait for this game. I love Josh Hoover. He's a fun player to watch. I think this TCU team is kind of climbing back. I think the 3 best teams, we mentioned it earlier, the 3 best teams so far in the Big 12, and I don't know that it's overly close. with all due respect to Iowa State, is, and you could argue Iowa State has the two best wins in the league. They beat Iowa and they beat Kansas State, but they just haven't blown me away with how they've played. I think the three best teams in the league right now are Texas Tech and TCU and Utah, and then Iowa State's right there after them. But I think this is going to be a very entertaining game, and it's a big game for SMU, man, because that blowing that lead to Baylor was a big loss for them. That was a great opportunity for them, and now you've got this game. You're going on the road, you're going down, because they were at home against Baylor. They lost that game at home, and then now you've got to go down to TCU. You've got to have a comeback. You've got to kind of, so I kind of predict them to lose one of those and win the other one. You've got to kind of make up game, right? You lost the one you were supposed to win. Now you got to win the one you're not supposed to win. So that's going to be a very entertaining game. It's a huge game for TCU as well, because this is let's put ourselves a little bit into that, hey guys, we're to be taken seriously again type of thing with a game. If they can pull off a win in this game, I think it'd be huge for them. Huge. And they got Arizona State next week on the road. So you drop this game, now all of a sudden you're going to be in some trouble next week. Now this is a non-conference game, but if you want to have any chance of being the second team in the Big 12 to get into the playoff, you've got to do well out of conference. And I'd say one thing I think the Big 12 has done so far is they've had some very good out of conference wins as a league. You got TCU going on the road and whooping North Carolina. You have Iowa State beating Iowa. That'd been perfect, obviously. Arizona State losing to Mississippi State doesn't help you. Baylor losing to Auburn doesn't help you. But then you kind of get that back by going on the road and beating SMU on the road. So, Utah destroying UCLA. There's been some good wins, but this is kind of your last big potential statement win as a league if TCU can smack SMU and get a little payback for the beatdown that SMU put on them. That was like 66-42, something like that.
Yeah.
Beatdown last year on them. This is a little payback. I'll tell you this, Trev. I don't know who's going to win. I like TCU because they're at home, but I think it's going to be an entertaining game. That's for sure. It's going to be a very entertaining game. So last one. There's two games I got my eye on this weekend that are related to Notre Dame. Just quickly, Michigan State at USC. I like what I've seen from Michigan State so far, Trev. Aiden Childs, I think, is kind of in the throes of sort of having that breakout season we were expecting from him. He's been good. He's got room to grow still, but he's got over 650 yards. I thought the way that he played in the second half of the BC game was like, okay, like this is what I think Aiden Childs can be. They were struggling the first half. He made some plays, running, throwing, all that kind of stuff. And I was impressed. By the way, people from West Virginia beating Pitt, that's another good Big 12 win. Cincinnati even losing in a battle against Nebraska was hey, you know what? You represented yourselves well. Good call on that, guys. But this Michigan State team, Trev, has impressed me so far. They're still a work in progress. Can they go out to LA and be competitive against USC? This is going to be the best team USC has played so far. How's their offense look? Can Michigan State's defense play a little better? Their defense has not been great so far. Dylan Lonergan shredded the Michigan State defense a couple weeks ago. If they're going to have to play better, but that's an interesting game. We're going to learn a lot more about USC in this game. And then NC State at Duke. NC State's undefeated so far. And we've learned two things about NC State. Their offense and CJ Bailey, every bit as good as we said they were going to be. If you haven't had a chance to watch CJ Bailey yet, I mean, watch him, folks. He's a good football player. He's fun to watch. And we told y'all that receiving corps is legit, and it is legit. So no doubt about it, that team can absolutely score. You scored 34 against Wake, scored 35 against Virginia. It's all good, but receiving corps is legit. But what we also learned, Trev, is their defense is a bit of a sieve. And so can they improve it all against a Duke offense? It's kind of okay, but not great. That's an interesting game. This is a big opportunity for NC State to be 4-0 and say, hey, look, like we deserve some conversation to be a top 25 football team. And they got a Virginia Tech at home the next week, and then Campbell the week after that, there's a good chance that NC State, if they can win this Saturday, is going to be undefeated when they come to South Bend, which would be huge for Notre Dame. So if you're a Notre Dame fan, root for NC State to beat Duke and blow Duke out. Because if they are, there's a good chance they're 6-0 and ranked, and that's the kind of resume builder Notre Dame really, really needs if they're going to rebound from this 0-2 start. I mean, I know we're talking, but hey, we still got to be thinking about it a little bit. So that's a game I'm looking forward to as well. And by the way, Dylan Lonergan is what we thought he was going to be this year as well. We said before the year that I think there's going to be a changing in the guard at quarterback in college football, and we are absolutely seeing that.
Agreed. And it's even funnier because it's not always the quarterbacks that we thought it was going to be, but for the most part it is. And I think that's really exciting. I'll say this, they haven't played yet, but if Notre Dame and NC State don't figure out whatever the heck they're doing on defense, take the over.
Oh, God, yes. If you set the over at 70, I'm still taking the over if these two teams are still playing defense the way they have the first two games.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, listen, folks, that's going to do it for us here. Actually, I think we got a super chat in during the...
We got a super chat from Michael S. Michael says, what are the strengths of Purdue that Notre Dame needs to worry about on offense and defense? Well, I think their offense is a lot more capable of making big plays and scoring. They're better at receiver. Their quarterback is more dynamic. He's a better player. It's same running back. They're better coach. They play harder, but the talent level isn't all that much better. I mean, talent wasn't their issue last year. I mean, they had 3 defensive guys that big-time teams are building their whole portal class around. It wasn't a talent issue. They're terribly coached. But they're more athletic on offense. They're better coached, and but this isn't a game that should be close. What are the strengths of the Purdue? It's their skill on offense is pretty good. Yeah, it's much better. Much better. Ryan Brown's a fun quarterback to watch. If you haven't watched him, watch him. He's not an elite guy, but he's good. He can hurt you. If Marcel Reed can hurt you, Ryan Brown can hurt you. That's not a knock on Marcel Reed. He's not that guy. I'm actually more concerned about Ryan Brown than I was about Marcel Lee. He doesn't have Marcel Lee's receiving core, but he's a good football player. So that'd be my answer, Michael.
Well, good deal. That'll do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown podcast. Now, Brian and Sean will be back tomorrow for RTCF, and then you will be hopefully seeing our bright and smiling faces on Saturday for the post-game show after Notre Dame takes on Purdue. Also, be sure to hop over to IB Nation Sports Beat. That starts in a little bit over an hour from now. Give Sean Stiers and the guys a listen to. But before you head out of here, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you have that notification bell hit so you know whenever we go live. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, the best way to support what we do here is subscribe to the premium message boards at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So for Brian, I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown podcast.